Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-around good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Woo! I like
I
this!
can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast. Boy, do we have a fantastic episode for you guys tonight. As if you are not aware, possibly, I don't see how you could be, San Diego Comic-Con is happening as we speak, or it might be winding down for the night. I don't know, depending on your time zone. But yeah, some stuff's been going on. If you've been watching our socials, you've been seeing a lot of interesting photos and all kinds of really good stuff. And also, Hollywood is shut down. Everyone is on strike. Yay. Yay for them, but also kind of bad for Hollywood. But also good for Hollywood because people are going to get paid properly, hopefully. Because, yeah, withhold your work because you're worth it. But yeah, we have a lot to discuss tonight and perhaps, hopefully, a special on-the-ground little report from a certain someone on the ground at San Diego Comic-Con. But before we get into that, of course, introductions are in order. If you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are, that can happen. My name is Ben, and joining me, not any of the usual suspects tonight, okay? I'm the only OG. I'm the only OG that showed up here tonight. So joining me, coming back for the first time in a little bit, from the Ion Cannon podcast, is my good friend, Joel Davis.
And how come we don't have an emergency snappy catchphrase in the intro? So that when we show up, we can... You gotta give all your friends to make a snappy catchphrase and then have specific edits for specific sets of hosts.
Yeah, I know that it is like I think I don't know, what would your catchphrase be? Do you have something in mind?
No.
I got my eye on cannon. Yeah.
We got our eye on the cannon.
So yeah, we got to work on that. Okay, after the show, we'll workshop it. Also joining us, returning favorite. You see both of these guys in the chat a lot. Okay, it's gonna be weird not seeing their comments tonight, but they're here, returning to the show from what's the name of your podcast, Jesse?
Question, possible answer.
Question, possible answer. How could I forget that one piece of vital information at the moment where it is most important? I don't know how that is, but Jesse Bennett, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, great to be back. How's everyone doing? Looking forward to tonight.
It's good to have you, and yeah, it's been a lot going on. Glad to have you both with me. I'm glad someone is here with me because clearly everyone else bailed on me. I'm the only one here. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, no hard feelings. But I don't know. I may just change the lock to the studio before they come back. Okay, I may just do that because yeah, just not sure how I feel about this. But anyway, we got a lot to get into, of course. Obviously, John Boyega is in the news for some comments he made about possibly returning as Finn. We got Tem Morrison possibly fighting for the future of Boba Fett, and of course, as I mentioned, San Diego Comic-Con. Before we do that, of course, it's plugs time, guys. It's plugs time. Don't forget to check out the full plethora of the Star Wars Underworld Network right here on YouTube and otherwise. We got Ion Cannon. We got the Raeside. We got what are some of the other ones? we got we got Sundari Broadcast Systems. We don't mention them a whole lot, but they are on the network and they are doing some awesome
Across
stuff.
the
Tales
galaxy.
from Beyond the Galaxy, which are also doing awesome stuff, and maybe more in the future. We love to grow the network at some point, so love to get you guys in here and add more to the network. Speaking of this specific channel, we want to send you in the direction to punch that subscribe button, Chewy, and come join us. And you can even become a channel member and become one of our weird clone trooper designation things. I don't even know what number we're up to now. I know I'm CT0000, I think. So I'm zero guy. So whatever. That is what it is. Be sure to super chat with us. You can post them down in things on YouTube. If you're listening or watching on Facebook or Twitter, that won't be possible. So come over to the YouTube stream so you can leave a super chat with us, help support the show, and you get your question read out live on the air. And we'll be doing a special segment called Ask the SWU or Ask SWU. I don't know what the proper thing is, but it's a thing at the end of the show. We're going to read your questions. And currently we don't have that many questions in the vault. So definitely send some super chats for us to listen, to read off. And we'd love to give you some feedback on those. As I said, become a channel member. You get some interesting stuff. Maybe we'll get some behind the scenes content maybe one of these days for you guys. I'll get a studio tour. That should be a thing, right? I don't know why that isn't a thing. And obviously subscribe and review Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And leave a thumbs up on this video specifically, and leave a comment down below. Leave a positive comment. There's not enough positive comments on YouTube, damn it, so don't do it. Definitely not enough like buttons. And also join the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord server. We got a ton of stuff happening over there all the time. Bi-weekly events. And while we have the illustrious Baron Administrator of the Star Wars Underworld Discord server, I'll leave it to you, Joel, to tell the people what's going to be happening this week.
Yes, this week we will be playing Fall Guys this Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. So get your Fall Guys ready, updated, and we'll have some fun falling and guysing. So yes, game night.
Falling and guysing.
Game night. So yes, be on the lookout for that. And if all goes according to plan, next month before Ahsoka hits, I might have a little special watch party planned. I won't give out the details just yet, but be on the lookout for that.
Definitely be on the lookout for that. And yeah, Fall Guys is a lot of fun. I've admittedly been kind of engrossed in Lego Star Wars and in Fortnite lately, so I haven't got back to Fall Guys in a while. So I'm gonna have to dust it off, bring Fall Guys back, and get back into it, because Fall Guys is a lot of fun, and especially fun with a big group of people. So yeah, definitely come by and check that out tomorrow night, Friday, or maybe today if you're listening to this in the future. So definitely it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we are on the social medias. We are posting all the time, a lot of stuff from San Diego Comic-Con, from various social media platforms. We got Facebook, we got Twitter, we got Instagram, we got Threads. Threads is growing pretty well. It wasn't growing as well as it did the first week, but we're up to like 1,555, I think, as of today. So yeah, pump up those numbers. Those are rookie numbers. Pump up those numbers. And also, I'm still posting on Hive. Okay, Hive. I don't know what's going on Hive, but we're still posting over there, and we're getting some engagement. So I'm going to keep going with that until that thing dies. And yeah, you can definitely follow us on Instagram, because that is where Dominic is posting all of his amazing photos first from San Diego Comic-Con. So if you want all the updated stuff as it's coming in, definitely go follow Instagram at the SWU. And I think that is about it on the plugs. I think we can move on to the first story of the night. So as the title of this video implies, we got some new comments from John Boyega. John Boyega has been hitting the circuit talking. There's been a lot of, I'm assuming this happened before the strike, or maybe I think it was an episode of Hot Ones, I think, which probably was recorded before the SAG strike. So take that as you will. John Boyega's out there. He's doing the Hot Wings thing on Hot Ones. And he's had a complicated relationship with Star Wars. As everyone knows, kind of was saying some stuff previously like he might not want to continue being in Star Wars, might not want to come back. But now that we have the Rey Skywalker film on the horizon, people are asking the question, what is the fate of Finn? What are we going to see him again? And it seems like a natural fit of bringing him back alongside Rey and Daisy Ridley. So I don't know what's going to happen, but John Boyega seems to be hinting at this, aside from ranking the sequel trilogy films, as he did today. That news came out, which lit the internet on fire, as you can imagine, because he listed, I think, Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, and The Last Jedi. You can imagine how that was taken on the World Wide Web. We're not going to talk about now because that's just a whole can of worms that we can't get into.
Want to hear Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi's ranking of Star Wars? Suck, terrible. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly. So it could be worse. It could be worse, guys. But we're specifically talking about his comment in regards to him saying he's kind of open to Star Wars again. And he kind of walked back some of his previous statements because I think someone kind of brought up saying, hey, you were saying some things like you wouldn't be interested in Star Wars. He kind of walked those back. And he also added, quote, I'm open to all characters and scripts that are enjoyable, have a great cast attached, and a terrific director. So yeah, I'm open to all opportunities. So he's not like specifically saying, yeah, I'll do another Star Wars. He's like, yeah, I'll do it if you give me a good script and a big bag of money. Which can't you blame him? But how do we feel about this? How do we feel about the possibility of John Boyega coming back to Star Wars? Joel, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I never buy any of that. I'm done with Star Wars nonsense. That's just talk. He's an actor at the end of the day,
talk.
Big sack of money. And if Alec Guinness says Star Wars was stupid and he came back, John Boyega, who likes Star Wars overall, I think can easily come back to. I don't buy anybody who says they're never going to come back to Star Wars unless it's like, very unique cases. And can't think of, maybe Jake Lloyd, but that's one of those very unique cases, unfortunately, of never coming back to Star Wars. But hey, Ahmed Macbeth came back to Star Wars as first Jar Jar in Clone Wars, and then as Caloran Beck in Mando, and that spin-off series. Hayden Christensen's came back as Anakin and Obi-Wan, and or maybe Ahsoka. I don't know. Maybe hopefully. I don't know. Ewan McGregor came back. The only one who hasn't come back is Natalie Portman, although, no one wanted to do a Padme thing. So, the whole, are you going to come back? Are you not going to come back? The real question is Finn in the Rey movie script or not? And is that going to happen because we're on strike? So, I kind of, to me, it's always like, they always say, I'll come back, I won't come back. And then, it's not a matter of will they, won't they. It's more like, do the studios have a script where they want them to come back? Harrison Ford came back, and so twice.
Came back twice, yeah.
To me, it's not about this nebulous will they, won't they. It's are they really saying no when a script is there ready to go for them or not? And that would be more interesting, I think, if it's like, is Finn in the script and John Boyega saying no? So, yeah, that's kind of my hot take on the situation of, like, this is kind of all nebulous talk until an actual script emerges with Finn in it, and he will say yes or no to it.
Yeah, I feel like there's been so many instances of actors just talking and saying things, and you really have to take a lot with a grain of salt. I'm not just talking about the Andrew Garfields of the world where they're just lying through their teeth constantly to protect a movie. They are legitimately like saying, like, because things change. People say, hey, I don't want to do that right now, but 10 years down the road, something might change, or they might get a good script, they might get a good bag of money, and things will change.
To them. Like, has John Boyega, I called him Finn. Well, he is Finn in our hearts. But has John Boyega been offered a Star Wars script in the last 5-7 years since Rise of Skywalker? And I'd say no. I don't think they started really thinking about those characters until just recently. And now they can't think at all because of the strike.
No thinking allowed. Jesse, what do you make of all this? What do you think the possibility of John coming back?
I think that, excuse me, I think the chances of him coming back are strong. I think whenever he first said he wanted nothing to do with Star Wars, I think he was being honest at the time that he said it.
Yeah.
But since then, we've seen the power of the fans and what the comments, and they can bring people back to to do more projects. And so seeing fans talking about how they feel he was shortcoming maybe in the movies, and that he's got the fans on his side, he's more open to it again as the script is right.
Yeah, it really comes down, because I think that's kind of, people obviously will use John Boyega's comments today of saying that The Last Jedi is the worst one of the sequel trilogy, which he's perfectly, a lot of people have that opinion. That's not just John Boyega, okay? So it's perfectly fine for him to have that opinion. Anybody that's going after him should definitely mind their business. But I think for him, it's not just, oh, I watched the movies and I either didn't like it or didn't like it. It's a whole experience for him. And ultimately, it's about his experience filming those movies and how he feels his character was treated. And a lot of people brought up some very good points that The Last Jedi did not treat Finn in the best light. And I'm not sure if Rise of Skywalker did him the best work either. So I feel like to get John Boyega back on board, it has to be, yes, money factor, because you got to eat. But also, he needs a good script. He needs to feel good about it. He needs to, ultimately need to win him back with it. And I think he's made allusions to having meetings with Kathleen Kennedy and talking about that and stuff, stuff along those lines, that I think they've been kind of courting him at least back into their good graces so that they can drop that bomb of want to come back and do Finn again.
Well, what they need to do to fix it is they need to take the holiday special Finn storylines and make those parts canon.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so that way it's already happened. If we need to do a slight montage scene or something to, to canonize it in film, do a short montage of the training and maybe touch on these points, and yet still somehow find a way to say, but the rest of Lego isn't canon, to the actual film media, because then that's just a whole nother book of worms that we don't want to get into right now. But, do something like that, and then you can push forward with the story without spending half of a movie going over what we've already kind of gotten the gist of in books and other forms of media, be it fan fiction or whatever. But we've gotten, we can do a short montage and then just have it be, well, we're 10 years in the future or however long it is for the Rey movie. And that training just has happened off screen, montage Lego scenes in live action.
I disagree. Right. I don't think you need to do anything. Just say, here's Finn, he's a Jedi, let's go. I'm kind of of the opinion this Rey film is not going to be episode 10. I think they really want to focus on the new peoples. I think, I don't think they're going to, I don't even know if Finn's going to be even thinking about putting Finn or Poe into the new movie, for being perfectly honest. I continue to think, it could just be Rey and some new students. And then they're kind of just cameos.
Yeah, because where do you stop there? Because obviously we as fans, I want to know what Finn is doing. I want to know what Poe is doing. I want to know what Rose is doing. Hell, bring in Nine Numb. If he survived, I wanted to see what he's been up to.
Don't forget the cutaway to Grogu.
Exactly. Because we know he's going to be around. He's going to be hanging around at the Jedi Temple, especially. So, where do you stop though? How do you do that focus? Because this movie, and I said this in a previous episode, is I want people to temper their expectations, because I'm not sure where they're going with this in regards to, they brought Daisy out on stage and oh, this is a Rey Skywalker movie. That's what we've been calling it. We don't know for sure this is actually going to be focused on Rey Skywalker. This could easily be, here's a movie about characters that are set after Rise of Skywalker, and then Rey just shows up and she's there. Obi-Wan.
I'll say this. Then, even in the promotions, I've been going back and rewatching it. They're calling it, it's here's a new Jedi Order movie. And then all Kathleen Kennedy says is, you want to meet who the teacher of the Jedi Academy, New Jedi Order is, and then Daisy Ridley. You know, they're not calling it a Rey Skywalker movie. It is the new Jedi Order movie, and it will be about the Jedi Academy. Here is our teacher.
And I know they've said, there's going to be slight thematic connections between some of the new movies. And so I know there's going to be, I forget the name of it, but the one set anciently, the first Jedi. That's going to be about the construction of the First Order, most likely, or something along those lines. And I feel like the Rey movie will somehow pick up on those threads of the creation of that order and kind of show maybe she gets back to that base of the first Jedi, because she has the ancient text and has those learnings. And
right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways they can go with this, obviously. And I think the fans, me, I want to see Rey. I want to see Daisy Ridley back. I want to see Finn back. I think it's not just I love these characters. I'm like, they could do, I don't want to go this route, but yes, a little bit of damage control in the sequel trilogy and go let's go take a little step further and go well, you were disappointed about Finn not being a Jedi. Well, now 15 years forward, he is a Jedi. He is maybe a Jedi Master. Maybe he has his own students. Maybe he has his own academy somewhere. We don't know how the Jedi are set up. Maybe he's on the Jedi Council. There's so many different possibilities.
I'm tempering my expectations in terms of I already think fans want, here are Rey and Finn's adventures together. And then for all we know, it could be just, a scene where Rey's oh, these dating kids, they're driving me nuts. It's hey, you're getting a call from someone. It's oh, it's Finn. He's, in a Jedi robe, having a good time. It's Finn, help me. These kids are driving me nuts. And Finn gives Rey some pep talk. Don't worry, Rey. The kids are kids. You'll learn it. And then I'm off to go do some other things in the unknown regions with Poe or in Rose, where where's a couple and stuff. And
oh yeah,
then, and then Rey's just, and then Finn hangs up, and Rey's oh, I gotta deal with these kids. So it's it could just be as simple as that.
These darn kids. But I don't want to turn this into, I don't want to become one of those fans. Look, we all have, I think, issues with the sequel trilogy. And I don't want this to sound like I'm these darn haters, whatever your opinion, I don't care. But I think a lot of people came out of the sequel trilogy going well, why weren't Luke, Han, and Leia and Lando? Why didn't they have bigger roles? Why weren't they the central focus? Why didn't they get together? Whatever else. And my whole response to that is just the story wasn't about them. They had their trilogy. This story was about Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose. It was about those new characters. They were meant to be supporting cast. It was never going to be their story. So, it's weird. I think asking for there to be the big reunion and here's them being badass again. Nah, I never really expected that, even though I thought it was a possibility. So I don't want to go to this movie being that kind of fan and going well, now's the time for my characters to get nah, it's about the next generation. This could be setting up for the next, set of heroes that people a lot younger than me, maybe even half or less than half of my age, will be connecting with. And that's great too. So go ahead.
I was gonna say it would. Although I'll just say it would be weird if the film almost ignored the characters. We have talked about before. I'm going to be honest. I do suspect there's going to be some damage controlling, soft rebooting with the new Jedi Order films for sure. I think there's going to be just a little bit of that. I can't see Lucasfilm kind of going, we did good on Rise of Skywalker. Tally ho! I think there's going to be yeah, we kind of know we screwed the pooch a little bit. We probably could, not fix things, but leave some things on a happier note for certain.
There's a fine line. I think there's a happy medium there. It's you have to, I'm not trying to be one of these fans. It's you should be ashamed of this because you made this, and who's to blame? I'm no one's to blame. It's a movie, that you didn't like. Just you need to I don't know, get over it and just move on with your life instead of looking for who's to blame for a movie. It's just absurd. But ultimately, yes, movies are flawed. And I think, studios, they kind of need to stand behind them because like nobody else is. And I feel bad for like, Steven Spielberg is famous for like, shout out to Question Impossible Answer podcast. We're going to be talking about the Temple of Doom pretty soon on that podcast. Steven Spielberg like totally turned around Temple of Doom, and now I was like openly said like, yeah, I don't like that movie, and I didn't enjoy it, and like was very open about his disdain for the movie. And I'm like, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that like the critics and everyone kind of turned him around, because that movie, looking back, is beloved. It has its issues, no doubt about it, but it's a beloved movie. And I feel like when you have the creator kind of being swayed, and we see that with George too, with the prequels, and just being fed up with people just constantly bashing things. So I want them to be protective of the movies, but also be aware of their flaws and going like, we can down the road, we can tweak things and make things better for the story.
I don't have any concrete evidence, and I hate saying that. And like, oh, I'm spreading rumors on a podcast. That's how you do it, folks.
Yay!
But I've always heard from the grapevine, George didn't like any of the prequels. I always heard he never liked Attack of the Clones. I always heard that with the one he was like, not my best work. I got a little lazy there.
Yeah, I think he didn't like The Empire Strikes Back, which wasn't really his movie. So I think that was his first. That was his first kind of letting it go, and didn't like that.
First and only time. And then with Mark Wan, he's like, I'm gonna watch him like a hawk, Mark Wan. I'm watching like a hawk.
Oh, boy. But yeah, I think look, if I'm betting money, I'm saying all my money on Boyega returning. Okay, I don't see how that. I think Boyega, as much as he had problems, loves Star Wars, enjoy playing that character, and will want to do more stuff on his own terms. I think maybe even if they'll offer him an executive producer credit or something like that, giving him more involved with the scripting and the story. That would be great. Anything to get him back.
I have no doubt.
Happy.
Oh, I have no doubt that he probably wants an executive producer credit. Like if he comes back, I think he's gonna want some pull.
Yeah.
I think he'll start in a series. Like he might cameo a couple of times in a series that's set around that same time frame, because eventually they're going to run out of timelines and they're going to have to go there on Disney Plus. Or at least that's how my brain thinks about it. And I feel like he'll probably cameo there before they jump to a film. Like, yeah, okay, so we saw what he was doing. He's back. Here he is. He might, like him dipping his toes in the water.
And again, there's that interview. There's the interview with, I think it was Oscar Isaac and John Boyega. And this was, I think, for press for Rise of Skywalker. And they're like, hey, guys, would you want to do a Disney Plus series? Blah, blah. And like Oscar Isaac is like, no, hell no, they ain't going to Disney Plus me. And then flash forward to a few years later, he's doing Moon Knight. So like, that just goes to show that none of these things that these actors say mattered in any of these interviews, really, truly. So, and I think John Boyega may have had similar comments. And you look, it's got to be, because, actors are storytellers themselves. They care about this stuff. They don't want to be in something that sucks at the baseline. They also really care about it. And I think John Boyega has shown as someone who is in this business and has really come around as someone who is really thoughtful about all this. He cares about the story. He wants it to be right. So, you can't blame him for trying. So, yeah, that's, I think, 100%. Put it down. Put it in take it to the bookie and tell him that $1,000 on John Boyega. No, I don't want to actually need to put a thing. Someone's going to hold me to that. Oh my God, I don't have that much money. Anyway, moving on to our next. So speaking of people that are, switching gears from someone who is kind of iffy about coming back to Star Wars, to someone who absolutely wants to come back to Star Wars. He's almost at this point campaigning for it and is ready to go to the doors of Lucasfilm and protest about it. We have the good old Tem Morrison, aka Boba Fett. He is going about and he is talking, and he was at London Film and Comic Con, which took place earlier this month. And he said he was on his way back to New Zealand, and he said he was going to stop by LA. And he says, here's a few things happening in LA. I'm going to stop by LA on my way home to New Zealand, just have a catch up and see what's happening in the galaxy. And then when it comes to talking about season 2 of the potential season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, he says, this is why I'm going to pop up and see what's going on and make sure they're not going to put me on the shelf, end quote. So, yeah, it looks like that Tem Morrison is really vying to get back as Boba Fett. And yeah, I wish him the best, because I am also missing Boba Fett. I am also in the camp of, where the heck is Boba Fett season 2? What's going on there? I want to see him back. So I don't know, Jesse, what do you make of this? You know, is there, because there's all kinds of rumors about him potentially showing up as another character, but you know, what is the likelihood of Boba Fett making a comeback?
Boba Fett, I'm not so sure about right now, but Tim coming back, yeah, he's going to be back. There's a multitude of different characters. There's a chance that he could appear as. They might be trying to figure out what direction they want to go with season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, with how everyone responded to the, you know, they kind of had to throw some filler in there for another show for an episode and a half.
Right.
So they might be trying to analyze everything and figure out which route they actually want to go with that story and that character. But maybe they've got him contractually obligated also to appear so many times in so many years. So that could be why we're seeing some older clones start to come out of the woodwork that we didn't realize we wanted in live action as much as we're getting.
I think... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Somebody go. Somebody say something.
I was ready for someone to step in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Joel, go ahead.
My guess, season 2 of Book of Boba Fett doesn't happen. 100% he's in season 4 of Mando. Guarantee it. I put my money down. Season 4 Mando, Book of Boba Fett episode, and probably in the Filoni film.
I feel like Boba Fett is a prime candidate to be kind of a other Mandalorian in a season of Mandalorian. Like, if they're not going to do a second season of Book of Boba Fett, like, they could at least do a season of Mandalorian where it's Din and Grogu teaming up with Boba Fett, and maybe Fennec Shan's along for the ride, and the biker gang, and they're maybe doing a mission on Tatooine, or maybe they go intergalactic, they go to some other planet. You know, I think that's definitely on the cards. I thought, I mean, look at the season finale of Book of Boba Fett. Like, how amazing was that, seeing those two together? I think they have a lot of great chemistry, and they're also two badass Mandalorians with a lot of weapons. That's freaking cool. So I want to see more of that. And so, you know, I would be shocked if they didn't do that at some point. I feel like that's so easy to do. So it's such a low-hanging fruit. But I think we're going to know pretty soon, as some people are alluding to, that we might get him as perhaps another character. I think he's probably holding back on some stuff. But I think, you know, the Fetts are near and dear to Tem Morrison's heart. So I totally get him wanting to bring back the Fett. So we'll see. And I also want Fennec back. Bring back Ming-Na Wen. Okay, come on. They unalived her. They undeaded her. They brought her back to life. Gave her a robo tummy.
Somehow,
don't let her lay by the wayside. You know, keep that character, because I love that charter.
I just had a horrible thought.
She's coming back in Bad Batch season 2. I think season 3.
I just had a horrible thought though about Rex though in Ahsoka. You know, we're all expecting Rex to have a comeback moment. He and Ahsoka to team up. What if it's like Captain America: Winter Soldier, where Rex is just old and dying on his bed, and Ahsoka's there to pay her last respects to an old comrade, as he is the oldest clone alive.
I thought you were gonna go the route of like him like being Winter Soldier. I mean, like, who the hell's Ahsoka?
That's what I was thinking too. And Joel, you went even darker than I thought it could go. That would
we had some good times, Commander.
That would be heartbreaking.
He's losing his mind. Like, did the Separatists beat the Separatists?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's don't Dave Filoni, don't torture us like that, please. Don't listen to this.
No, it's out there. If we're getting Rex, it should just be Ahsoka say, well, I have a contact. And he's living peacefully, and they stay in touch. And he's our guest for an arc or so, however long it needs to be.
Right. And I mean, speaking of campaign, like Tem Morrison has also campaigned for Captain Rex. Like, he's been open and honest about wanting to play Captain Rex for a very long time. So that seems like also kind of an inevitability. If it doesn't happen in Ahsoka, then it'll happen at some point down the line. What if Captain Rex and Boba Fett and Wolf and all those guys just met? Like, how weird would that be? We have a multiple Tem Morrisons on screen again for the first time.
How many reshoots would he have to do per scene to make one episode, do you think, if they tried to do Bad Batch live action with one actor? You're going to have to shoot each scene at least 5 times, but then you're going to have to reshoot from different angles. So, I mean, how long is that going to take to make one episode?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I know that the whole cloning, for lack of a better term, technology of like putting the same actor in the same scene different ways, it's been around for forever now. It seems like one of the oldest like kind of visual effects. I still don't know how they do it. I know it's just probably like stand-ins or whatever else, and they probably come back. I would think it would be just easier now. Just be like, yeah, do the scene 5 times, like you're saying, and there it is. Tem Morrison just talking to himself. So yeah, I desperately want that. I know I'm being greedy. We'll be lucky if we get Boba Fett and Rex back. If having them in a scene together is like asking for way too much, but that's what I do.
They've been pretty. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I want to point out. They've been, pretty hesitant, for good or bad. I don't know. Everyone's different of sort of keeping the animated and live action stuff, or at least the current animated stuff, sort of separate. Like Bad Batch really hasn't factored into Mandalorian at all. Like, I remember everyone thought, is Omega going to show up? Omega never showed up. Like, are we going to see the Bad Batch? Never see the Bad Batch. I mean, to be fair, I don't think they want to do that because it's sort of like, well, if Omega lives, that spoils Bad Batch for you. That's like, or the Bad Batch itself is like, oh, well, that's the Bad Batch did live to see the end of the war. So, no one really wants to really see that. So it's kind of interesting to sort of think about, like, will other clones show up that we know of? I mean, I have a feeling we might see Rex, though. I would be shocked if we didn't.
It seems like they're kind of content to like not like have those direct connections as they're happening. Like you have this concurrent show and this concurrent show, and they're going to cross over. Other than like Boba Fett and Mandalorian, like not having that kind of connections, because I'm assuming because like if you have like Hunter and Omega show up in the Bad Batch season, the Mandalorian season 3, and that's a big thing. Now we know what happens to them. Now the kind of the, I know jumping around the timelines, it's not all about that, but it would take some of the fun out of like what's going to happen to these characters. Well, we know they show up in Mandalorian a few decades later. So I think they're kind of content of like, yes, we'll pull Bo-Katan out of Clone Wars and Rebels because those stories are finished. They're in the past. We know the fate of that character. We know up to a point. Now we can continue the story versus kind of doing connections for the sake of connections, which I can appreciate. I can at least, as much as I would have, we had way back in the day, we had Rebels going on concurrently with Rogue One. And we thought, oh, here's this great opportunity for a crossover. And it just didn't happen. And it wasn't until a couple seasons later when they seemingly knew everything was going to go on in Rogue One that they started putting those Rogue One connections to Rebels. So,
actually something I appreciate about Star Wars, and I think Marvel could learn a little restraint these days.
Right. And I think also the production timelines don't always match up because like we're watching them, but like the production timeline for the animated shows is even longer than live action stuff. So it's hard to get these shows even made, much less, I think there was a quote from Katie Sackhoff recently. She was like complaining that people were complaining to her. They're like, why are the episodes short, Mandalorian? She was like, you're lucky these shows even get made. Like, they are so hard to make. Like, just be glad you're getting something, because this stuff is really hard to get put on screen, much less at the length that you want it. So just be happy with what you have. Speaking of getting things on screen and being very hard to get on screen and sometimes just not happening at all, the Lando show. Everybody remember the Lando show? Star Wars and Lando should have been named the Calrissian Chronicles. They still have a chance to change that, by the way. That was announced way back when, along with Rangers of the New Republic and Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to get bogged down in all this. I'm just going to say that we have an update. We have a critical update about the Lando show. Something crucial, breaking news, huge breaking news. Head writer Justin Simeon says that he doesn't know what's going on with it, and that there's been no developments with that. Speaking with the direct, talking about his new film, Disney's Haunted Mansion, he said he has, quote, I certainly poured my heart and spent a lot of time working with them to put together a really great show. It feels like everybody loves it. And, I was told we had to put a pause on it because of scheduling. And the next update I got was in 2020, some years ago. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with it. End quote. So is no news good news? I don't know. Any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of in this weird camp right now, and I could be proven wrong, strikes and all, that the Rogue Squadron situation was sort of a fluke in terms of how that went down. As for the Lando show, that could really just be a case of Donald Glover is a busy man. At least I think he is. I don't know what he does. And he's kind of probably the key to all of it. He's the key to all of it.
The key.
And his schedule is just really busy. And I guess it's that, they didn't nail him down because, they wanted to give him, much time as he needed. In terms of, Disney Plus shows, it's interesting. And we can maybe get into this later with some other comments by people. Sort of interesting that they haven't announced any new shows. We're getting continuations of shows we have, like Andor and Mando, although they're all on hold right now. But we kind of feel like they're probably going to happen. Acolyte, probably a multi-season show. But yeah, it's sort of interesting. I do wonder if maybe the Lando show is just something they want to keep in their pocket eventually, depending on how much Disney Plus content they still need. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
I feel like there's no real expiration date on this because, like, I know you have the whole idea of, like, actors get busy, actors age. I don't think there's any possibility of Donald Glover aging out of this role. If anything, he's probably going to age into it a little bit, depending on where it's in the timeline. So I think they've got plenty of time. I hope they do it. I hope Justin Simeon stays on because it sounds like he put a lot of work into it. He was going to be the head writer on the show. So, it sounds like they did a lot of work and there was a lot of stuff there. I hope they can do it. I think just call it Calrissian Chronicles. That's literally my only note. Call it Calrissian Chronicles and do the show because it would be amazing. Jesse, you have any thoughts on this?
I'm hopeful that we get it. With how little we've heard about it and everything else from around that same announcement time, seems like it's fading away. I don't think we're going to get it, but I hope we do. It's always, from all the rumors and stuff that have always been thrown out there about what we'll see and what could happen, it would be a really good show. And I think it would really, if they did it right, of course, which it sounds like, with the head writer, they were doing great. It's just, I hope it comes.
Yeah, that's all we can do right now is hope. It's going to be interesting to see, because we've had so many false starts with things in regards to, we've got Rogue Squadron kind of hanging out to dry. We've got seemingly the cancellation of Rangers of the New Republic. And we've got other things like, and we got a confirmation recently about James Mangold's Boba Fett movie. And we know that thing became the Book of Boba Fett ultimately. So we kind of saw that. It wasn't what James Mangold had in mind, but it was there. So ultimately, what we're left with is I just hope that they are diligent on this and that they don't give up on it, and that we can ultimately see something along this line. Because I think, Lando's a great character. I think, I've always talked about the whole make Solo 2 happen in the sense of it doesn't have to be a Solo 2. It can be a Lando show. It can be a Kira show. It can be bring back any of those characters. I love that whole cast, and I love anything that can be connected to that. So a Lando show would sound like right up my alley. Like I think he was perfect. He was someone that I wasn't even Donald Glover, really? You're gonna cast him as Lando? And then you watch the thing and you're like, okay, now I see what they did there. So they've got their Lando, and I hope they can do something, because I also really want Billy D to be involved somehow. I would hope that Billy D could somehow be brought in there. But he's not going to be acting forever. I would imagine he's still doing cons and stuff like that, but he can't be doing this stuff forever. He's got to retire someday, and is he really going to want to come back for a Orlando show in 5 to 10 years? So I don't know, a lot of stuff to consider, but I do hope this actually does happen. Let's see. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, me too. It's I'm kind of just thinking back in terms of that announcements that 2020. What was that announcement thing? The big one with JPEG and everyone was on like a computer. Was that 2020?
I don't know. I think that might have been peak COVID. I think.
Yeah, that certainly was an odd one for me, and that's another reason why.
Very odd.
I don't want to play conspiracy theory with announcements, because anything can happen in Hollywood, as we see. But sort of like those announcements were so strange, and then you kind of look at the announcement we got for Celebration. It's like, ooh, you guys are really it's one thing to do it on a computer screen, but like when you're making announcements to the choir, it's like. It's like you're almost committing too much. I don't know what I'm saying. It's just sort of, I'm just thinking back to that initial investment day thing, and I'm like, that was an odd time, especially probably because of COVID too. Things have changed.
Yeah, it's gonna be obviously, and then we're just now kind of putting COVID in the rearview mirror, and now there's a strike happening, multiple strikes. Maybe I've heard I think UPS is going on strike. I think very soon. The theater people are going on strike. Like there's a whole bunch, and I say, hell yeah, everybody go on strike. Let's do it. But also, it's gonna screw up a lot of things, and Hollywood is basically in deadlock. This is actually something we don't have in the show notes, but I'll mention it now since I've mentioned the strike. And the next story I want to kind of dive into the strike a little bit. Apparently, Andor is not stopping production. Apparently, the production has found a way to continue using actors that are not American actors, that are actually that they can contractually obligate to continue working because they're not American and thus aren't part of the SAG or whatever else. I think it was Andor News on Twitter that had a big thing. And Deadline, I think, was the source of it. I'll try to find it. But essentially, kind of a bummer, because I was worried that Andor being as great as it was and great as the writing was, that how are they going to do this without its writer and out its producer? So this is Andor season 2 is still production at Pinewood Studios without the SAG-AFTRA members. British actors who are members of Equity have no legal protection to join SAG's strike in solidarity, considering the UK's union laws. So apparently they're still chugging along. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, I guess would people like Genevieve O'Reilly be part of SAG? I would assume.
So I'll just say this, and I don't know all the details, but now I'm hearing they are halting production. Like, that is the new headline so far. So I don't know, like maybe somebody caught it.
Can they get their story straight, please?
I don't know if they only
saying right now.
They only had enough people or whoever to like film like 3 scenes maybe, and we're like, well, we've done all we can without this list of people. We were hoping we could stretch this out.
They maybe I mean, they could technically be doing like second unit stuff and like, you know, just on location stuff and doing plate shots for backgrounds, it's like that. Like they could be still doing that, which would make sense. But like as far as like, doing some real acting and stuff, that doesn't, I don't know. I hope, as it should, everything needs to shut down, okay? Bob, are you listening to me, Bob? Pay your writers, okay? Pay your actors. Treat them well. It's not that hard. Sell the 3 of your 5 yachts, okay? You don't need them. Okay? You can make it without them. Just pay your writers. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Speaking of good old Bob, there was a quote going around from CNBC. I think this might actually been one of the main interview that caused all the big kerfuffle last week, where Bob showed his true colors in regards to the strike. But he was asked on CNBC about if they're going to be pulling back on Marvel and Star Wars content. And he says, yes, you pull back not just to focus, but also our cost containment initiative, spending less on what we are making and making less. And he also goes on to say Marvel is a great example of that. It had not been in the television business at any significant level. And not only did they increase their movie output, but they ended up making a number of TV series. Frankly, it diluted focus and attention. So a lot of people took this and ran with it, like last week, and said, they're pulling back on Star Wars, which wouldn't be shocking by any means. And it obviously is true for Marvel because there has been less Marvel shows. We got like 3 or 4 Marvel shows like within a year. And now we've only got like 1 this year. So like they've definitely pulled back on Marvel. It would stand to reason that they might be pulling back on Star Wars, but I don't know if he said that specifically. People were kind of going back and forth on this, saying like, well, he said it because they were asked him about Marvel and Star Wars, and he said this. He didn't specifically say Star Wars, and the people were kind of saying, well, he didn't say Star Wars. He was just talking about Marvel because he added the extra quote on there, so maybe he's just talking about Marvel. I don't really know what's going on here. Putting my tinfoil hat on here just for a moment, if you'll oblige me, I think this is lip service for the strike. I think this is saying in a very vague way that things are going to be starting to slow down. Like there's going to be a slowdown. And I think instead of going, well, there's not going to be a new Marvel show or a Star Wars show in the fall or in the spring because, you know, the writers and the actors struck because we didn't pay them. Or they can say, well, we always planned to do this. We always planned to not release so many. We always planned to slow down on content. And it's always been part of the plan. And, you know, in the other studios, I'm sure that Dune 2 apparently is going to be pushed back some. So they're already trying to push the stuff back to create some breathing room for them to wait out the writers and actors, which is a scumbag move for the record. Jesse, you have any thoughts on this kind of overall Bob shenanigans here?
So just like the whole thing is awful, obviously.
Right.
There was the one comment about starving them out and waiting, and it's
yes.
Do you realize that these are people that were, you know, in college and, you know, they know how to survive on nothing. Like the struggle is real. They've been through it before. You know, bring it on. We got this. Bring in the ramen.
challenge, and that's the comments that I saw, because there's a lot of people
we survive on pasta.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Food
But
prop.
like there was Adam Conover from Adam Ruins Everything. He's been very vocal on Twitter, and he was like, "Oh, you have no idea. Like this just like galvanized the movement. If anything, like it was meant to scare them, it did the opposite."
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we've definitely, go ahead and starve us out. I'm not that I'm one of them at all, but they're probably like, we'll be okay. Yeah, it's gonna suck for a little bit, but just like with any strike, if you hold out long enough, hopefully eventually the bigger guy's gonna cave in because they realize they need the little guy so the big guy can get money.
The like at this point, I feel like the writers and actors have nothing to lose at this point, and the studios have everything to lose. They have everything. They're losing like how many millions, multi-millions of dollars a day by everything just at a standstill now. Like these huge productions. Deadpool 3 is just down and out. Obviously all the Star Wars shows, Andor, Marvel shows, like all this stuff is happening. Nothing's happening. What are you going to do without writers and actors? Come on now.
I have some insights I'd like to share if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So, the funny thing is the AMPT. I
that's the correct one.
The studios is legally speaking, the studios can make individual deals with the unions if they wanted to. They don't have to make it as a group. Disney right now could make a deal with the Writers Guild right now by themselves. Say goodbye, Warner Brothers and everybody else. We're out of here. The biggest reason why they haven't done that is Netflix. Apparently, Netflix and a lot of the tech owned studios have really been like the hardliners in the group. And for whatever reason, the other studios don't want to upset them. Why, I don't know. So for some reason, like Netflix has been hard ass about a lot of this.
Wow.
So that's a big reason. A big reason is they don't want to reveal their numbers. The odd thing is it's either because they either owe the writers a lot of money because of the residuals that they might be withholding, or, and it's something that a lot of people have brought up, streaming just isn't doing it. The numbers aren't that big or impressive, and a lot of people aren't watching the shows. And streaming really isn't a profitable thing. Just subscription based on its own is just not doing it and hasn't been doing it. You can find a bunch of this online, like how streaming is not just not been a profitable thing, and how it wasn't the thing everyone thought it was going to be, which led to the strike, obviously. So why Disney hasn't decided to break with the rest of the studios, I don't know. I'll be curious to see if anybody blinks first and just decides, you know what, forget Netflix. I'm just gonna make a deal myself. And of course, there's the whole issue of AI. That's no one wants to let the control over. And then, of course, there's the more darker side of like the studios just want to crush the unions. The tech bros really want to crush the unions because a lot of the tech industries do not have union workers. And so, like, the destruction of union working would be like the dream come true. So there's that. As for Iger's own comments, it is possible that this is part of the plan for the strike. And it could be possible it's been planned for a while because these comments have been going back for like months even before the strike. Like early in the year, Kevin Feige's talked about reducing Marvel content, or, there's even been some shifts of like changing some Disney Plus shows to movies. Inherently, just to give a little bit of benefit of doubt, just to kind of do that for this little teeny tiny bit, if they really do want to go back to movies and theatrical releases, if the focus is shifting on that, which I think it is overall, I would not be surprised if we see less Disney Plus Star Wars content as we get closer to a movie year. Like, if we actually do get a movie year, where a movie is physically formed enough to be released in theaters, I kind of don't expect them to have a lot of Disney Plus Star Wars content that year. Maybe like one show and then the movie. and that's it. And they're certainly not going to do like Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker on the same months thing. That's for sure.
Right.
So maybe 2 shows, and then the movie at the end of the year. Because movie land in.
Yeah, it's interesting how, going back to your comments about like how streaming might not be doing well. I genuinely think it does feel like the streaming bubble, as they're calling it, has burst, because like just taking, as Bob Iger puts it, taking Marvel as an example, you're talking about easily, probably I would dare say the biggest franchise in the world right now. I know Star Wars, we love Star Wars here, but Marvel has really been killing it lately. I think you take that whole build up to Endgame was massive, and they made one of the biggest movies of all time, the most profitable movies of all time. You cannot knock Marvel for not being successful. They are king of the box office right now. But it has been waning, and it hasn't just been the streaming shows, but yes, a lot of it has been the streaming shows, and them saying, oh, we're going to pull back on it, where it was diluting it. And maybe that's true. I think personally it probably was true. But also, like, if streaming is so big and if Marvel is so big, how could you dilute it? How could that go wrong? Why wouldn't people just be eating that up, and Disney Plus just going soaring through the roof with subscribers, and everyone's watching it and loving it and all this kind of stuff? And I know there's a few people in the comments that are gonna be like, well, some of it sucks. She-Hulk sucked. I'm like, yeah, whatever, screw you. I like She-Hulk. But like, it is interesting to think about, maybe this stuff is, and obviously they have something to hide. They're not, they don't want this stuff happening. That's fascinating to think that, like, the other studios, like, think of Disney hanging back going like, I don't want to upset Netflix. I'm like, we just make a deal with things, but Netflix over there is being the juggernaut, being the negative Nancy in the room. Like, that's fascinating, but it does track.
Netflix, I mean, I don't have all the details, but everything I hear, and I'm not making excuses for Bob Iger. I want to make that clear. But
he don't need your excuses.
No, but at the same time, Netflix is the enemy. Netflix has sort of been the problem, has been since day one with this thing. So I just want to kind of, if you do the research, it's like you look at Netflix and like, oh yeah, they're kind of the catalyst for a lot of it, and the other studios have just kind of been following their lead, so we speak.
Right, Jesse, you've been quiet. What you have any thoughts?
I keep forgetting that I'm actually here, and I've just been watching the show, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
No, you're doing the me one. You're me. You are playing me, because you're just sitting back going like, okay, he's making some good points. Oh, he's making some good points. Like, you're just doing that.
And now I'm like, okay, what did you say like 3 points ago? Because there was something I wanted to touch on, but I forgot it. And I'm trying to remember what it was just. But yeah,
believe me, I've been in your shoes, my friend. I've been in your shoes.
But that's really interesting to hear. I hadn't seen that bit of information yet about Netflix being, the big wall right now, basically.
Right.
If anything, I thought it would have been Disney being the wall. I pretty much like just got said. So it's really interesting, is it a matter of money? Is there something in the contract somewhere that they're not following through with? But just for the strike to happen, they've had to have been in discussion for months already trying to fix something before they, dropped their foot on it. So it's really, I'm hoping that whenever it all comes to light and everything gets resolved, and hopefully there's a nice little smiley face on the new contracts, signed Bob Iger, smiley face or something, dots his I with the smiley now. But it'd be really interesting to see, why did it take so long, if they stand up to Netflix and do this and do that, what took so long? What was it? That's what I want to know now.
If I had to guess, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say, if I had to guess, I think a lot of the studios still see Netflix as potential partners and customers put on their programs. Like, recently we just heard, this is a Disney going to Disney thing. So, Secret Invasion going to Hulu. Although that's Disney going to Disney. But I kind of wouldn't be shocked in a few years if the age of Disney Plus exclusive is over. Like, on a good side, but also maybe a bad side, I think Willow will return. I just don't think it'll be on Disney Plus. I think they're going to put it on like some ad revenue thing where it's like, well, it didn't make money, but we'll put it on some other thing with ads, where that can go so it can make some money. I wouldn't be shocked if, and I kind of hope they do this because I think it would help, spread the word. Replay some episodes of Mando or Andor on different channels or different streamers. Like, I honestly think, well, I guess not anymore because HBO's gone, but I think, Andor would have fit lovely around HBO and could have really found a big audience there. Because, you kind of think Disney Plus. You don't think the tone of Andor when you think the tone Disney Plus show. You think kind of more like family friendly, instead of dark Andor. So I think they don't want to upset a potential customer or ally in Netflix. Yeah, that's sort of it's cowardice, yes, but
right. I just find it fascinating that, like, in the same way that all the actors and all the actors and writers are, regardless of their stake in it, because there's a lot of actors on the picket line that don't need a pay raise, but they're out there going like, hey, I am here, to support my fellow actors. On the flip side of that, you have these giant companies and people like Bob Iger who are coming to board, and they have to kind of toe the party line and have this poker face and be talking to Netflix's CEO, whoever that is, I don't even know, and David Zaslav over at Warner Brothers Discovery and all those guys, and they have to kind of have a meeting of the minds, and they have to kind of toe a party line, regardless of even that. And like, at the end of I am fascinated just for the fact of, like, at the end of the day, like, Bob Iger obviously has to represent Disney. He has to say what the shareholders want him to say, but ultimately he has to get home and lie in bed and go like, man, I wish I could just pay those people. Like, like, he has to know the truth. He has to know that that's the way to go. He just either can't or doesn't want to, or he's fooling himself or whatever else. I'm just fascinated by that. Just like that whole idea of like, yeah, you know where this is going. And now that we're in full strike mode, like, there is an inevitable outcome here. There's no escape from it. Why are you prolonging the inevitable? But studio's going to studio, so...
And in like 40 years, we're going to get a movie about this.
That'd be fun. The strike that
there's going to be so many movies made about so many different things in our lifetimes. You just can't get away from all this just making history every other week. I really could do without it personally. But anyway, we are here. This is the world we live in. So, what would they call it? Double strike? 2 strikes, you're out. What would we get? A 3rd strike, 3 strikes, you're out. That's a good movie title. Yeah. Okay. So we got a bit more to talk about. Let's see. Where are we off to next? Obviously, strike will be coming up. Oh, I wanted to mention this. So, I did some digging. We all did some digging here at Star Wars Underworld, and we were kind of talking about how to properly navigate this whole thing, because obviously we talk about a lot of the stuff, a lot of this quote unquote struck content. What do we do to be in complete solidarity with the writers and actors who are striking, and anyone else who decides to strike in the next few weeks and months and maybe years? So we want to be as supportive as possible. And according to the DWGA and the SAG, as of now, they're not calling for any type of boycotts. They're not asking for people to go out and unsubscribe from Disney Plus. They're actually asking people to go and support this stuff, because, as I've heard some people put it, the companies can kind of come back and go like, well, your stuff is not doing so well, so we're going to pay you less and blah, 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 blah. Kind of use that against them. Again, scumbag move. But so So don't anyone out there, anyone's listening, you're like, hey, what can I do? What can I do to support this? Don't stop watching Star Wars. Okay, continue to watch Star Wars, at least for the foreseeable future. That's what we're going to do. We're going to continue talking about Star Wars because that's where we're winning. You're not telling people to stop podcasting about it, whatever. They are, however, asked people to obviously signal boost the stuff they're doing on social media, and they're also asking people to donate to the Entertainment Community Fund. And so that is linked in the description of this video, and it'll be linked in any description of any podcast that you're hearing this on. So definitely, even if you can't donate, just share the link around because that's been banning about. Adam Conover has been banning that about, and so it's even if you can spare a few dollars, it's going directly to anyone affected by this, anyone that is out of work, that's struggling to make ends meet. Your money's not going to Tom Cruise. I promise you. He's not going to get any of this money. He doesn't need it. Okay. It's going to go to people in need that are working in the film industry that need it. So I just want to get that out there and mention it before we ended for the night. A couple of more things before we get into San Diego Comic-Con, because we do have that hanging over our heads. Leslye Headland is out here talking about The Acolyte. Yes, that show is still happening. It's definitely happening, but when we get to see it, no one knows because I think it's filmed. But have they done all the ADR on it? Have they finished with reshoots? Is it actually finished? Well, they can't finish it now because it's definitely an American production, and as the aforementioned strike is going to stop any of that from happening. But we'll see. Maybe early next year we'll see it, or later next year. Who knows? Depending on when the strike is wrapped up. But she was on the Dagobah Dispatch podcast from Entertainment Weekly. She talks a lot about different things. Of course, they've been having actually a really good podcast. I highly recommend it listening over there because they have a lot of interviews with a ton of different Star Wars and etc. type of creators and actors, and what she had to say about The Acolyte was pretty interesting. She actually confirmed that apparently this show is going to feature the most Jedi we've ever seen in any Star Wars production before, which is kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. But we've seen the set photos, or at least some of us have seen the set photos, and we've seen, maybe you've seen the trailer. If you're at Celebration or you watch that potato quality version like I did, there's a lot of Jedi in it, a lot of Jedi kung fu force power stuff. It's going to be interesting. But that's a really cool tidbit. And she also talked specifically about the Wookiee Jedi. Now, that has been seen in set photos, and he actually came out on stage at Celebration in London. And also they talked about the fact that Jonas Suotamo is going to be playing him. And she talked pretty candidly about the fact that that character came about just her love of Solo, a Star Wars story. She is one after my own heart. I tell you, the more I hear about Leslye Headland, the more I love her. Like she says all the right things. But this is an interesting quote. She says, quote, "It's honestly started with Jonas. We thought it would be cool to do a Wookiee. Obviously, they have a Wookiee Jedi thing in the High Republic. And we thought it'd be cool to have our own version of that and have a very different character design. But honestly, I really loved Solo and I loved Jonas's performance in it. So I was watching it and I was like, gosh, it'd be really cool to see him as a Jedi and actually do some action work and some fighting and not just do the sidekick role." And it kind of started there. I didn't think they would let me do it. And I just kept pitching. And Neil Scanlon really loved the idea, especially loved the idea of having a Wookiee with the side of his head shaved. I didn't even notice that about the character, but apparently that is. She goes on to say, and I think that what makes the show interesting and different is that it's from the perspective of the bad guys or the villains of Star Wars. These are people that are using the Force in their own ways and that are dripping into the dark sides of the Force and are doing it without being sanctioned by the larger institution, which is in this case, the Jedi, end quote. So she kind of reaffirms that this show is going to be about the villains. Even though there's going to be a lot of Jedi, this is going to be focused on the Acolyte, the villains. Amandla Stenberg's character, whoever they're playing, is probably not going to be a Jedi, or maybe posing as a Jedi, but maybe they're not a Jedi. I don't know how that's going to go, but I don't know, Jesse, do you have any thoughts on these quotes? What's your hype level for Acolyte?
So, there's a meme. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's someone talking to someone, like person A says this or that, and person B is like, "Quit trying to sell it to me. You've already sold me." We can go back to the announcement of this show. I remember being super hyped for it whenever all we got was the timeline and the Acolyte was up on the line. That's all we knew about it. I've been hyped for it since then, and just so I've kind of tried to stay away from a lot of the information lately so I don't overhype myself or spoil it or anything, just to enjoy it. So hearing all this stuff, it's just like, that's perfect. This is still right on board. Now quit trying to sell it and just give it to me. Hopefully it's not too affected with everything going on, hopefully. But, I've always been hyped for the Acolyte, and that just affirms it.
I'm going to put my meme expert hat on here and say that you're referring to the Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, and James Franco meme of James
Maybe.
Franco's like,
That's probably it.
like, because one of them is it's, I think Franco says, oh, like, what is Jedi Fallen Order? It's like, Gallagher with a lightsaber, like, dude, and Toby's like, stop trying to sell me on this. Like, I'm already on board.
Yep, that's the one.
To use another Marvel meme, I remember for Andor, that meme was like, I was the one hyping up Andor, and they called me a madman. My inner Thanos at the moment.
I feel like that was your meme. That was the one that was all about you. Just this whole like, I told them before anyone else that Andor was going to be great. They called me a madman.
Yeah. But no, I've been hyped for Acolyte for a while. I was like, about Sith and stuff, and it's like, I'm just very curious how they're gonna do it. Like, how does Star Wars do a bad guy central show? Without obviously glorifying the bad guys, because you don't want to do that. Because they're still in the wrong. They can't be. They're not supposed to be good. Especially with Star Wars being very, at the end of the day, good guys, bad guys, bad guys. So I'm very curious to see how that is handled, and kind of, what's the story? Who is the main character? All I could suggest to anybody is, and strangely, it's not Read the High Republic, although I would suggest that too, because they're good books. I would argue, though, watch Russian Doll, Leslye Headland's other show, Russian Doll, if you kind of want to get a vibe of what maybe this show will be like. Because that is her kind of claim to fame. And I mean, I've never seen it either, so I should watch it. Because, it's like, all right, because like, it's about Cis and Jedi, but it's from the Cis perspective, or is it going to be, or is it about the Cis, but not from the Cis perspective? I don't know. I mean, whose perspective is it really from? But yeah, I'm hyped for this, man. It's a new era. I've seen some pictures. It looks cool. I just think I can't wait. I hope, and I'm curious how finished it was before the strike hit.
That is a big, good question about this show. And I think I would imagine I imagine this is just going to push everything back. So I think even if like they can continue working on it, it'll be incrementally, and ultimately there'll be other things, but then they'll also be like, well, this thing is close to being finished. Let's push it out so we can have something. We can wait out the writers and make sure they starve in the street without paying them, because that's a thing. Sheesh.
I genuinely wonder, will there be a year, maybe not next, maybe we won't notice next year, but will there be a year in the 2025, 2026 barometer, if the strike ends by, let's say, at worst, January of next year,
right,
where there's a kind of a pause and a gap of Star Wars content because it all had to be pushed back? Because, like, because I think if I'm just playing quarterback right now, but if the strike ends, say, in January, that's like worst case scenario. We're January of next year. I still think that 2026 release date can be hit, because you don't really get, if all they need to do is start filming in 2025. They gave themselves a few months to push back. If it's the Rey film or even the Filoni film, I think those two are still the most likely to happen the most. I don't know about Mangled at the moment. But the Rey and the Filoni one of the two, I kind of think are the ones that will happen regardless.
Right.
But obviously, there are going to be TV shows in the mix. Mandalorian's not happening. That got pushed back, and that's that's really going to be pushed back now. Andor is kind of halted. I don't know how far it's gotten. I don't think it was supposed to finish until next month. So, and I don't know about Acolyte. So there's 3 shows right there. I could see a scenario where 2025 might be a bit of a dead year, if not 20 and a little bit of 2026.
I think they know that. I think that's why, like again, as an example, like Dune 2 is apparently going to be pushed back. It's a different studio, obviously, but it's the best example I have of like a movie that we know we just got a trailer for, and it's coming, I think, later this year, supposedly. But they're pushing it back. I think they said Aquaman 2, which I thought would be out by now, because apparently I feel like that movie was made like ages ago. So like I feel like they're starting to stagger things out and go like, well, we know we have this happening. We have this movie planned for this, but we know now it's not filming. Deadpool 3 is not filming. Everyone's left, so they're not going to have, they have that big gap, so they're going to push things back so that at least we have something to go on.
Marvel pushed back a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. And Star Wars just pushed back some stuff. Like Star Wars just had that huge, Disney did this whole reshuffling thing we talked about a few weeks ago. With the untitled Star Wars films, which are probably the Mangold and the Rey movie and Filoni's movie. But this whole idea of, I think they knew this was coming, so now they're going to try to reshuffle things and kind of stagger things out so we can have some content. But ultimately, it is going to be this, this disruption, which that's the point, guys. It's supposed to be disruptive, and I hope it is disruptive because, like, we as viewers have nothing to lose, really, truly, because it's either people that make this stuff get paid and treated properly and they go back to work, or they stay out and the studios have to wring their hands and figure out something else and don't make stuff for a while, which gives the rest of us a chance to catch up on everything. I know it's like a million things. Like I just in the last couple of days, I watched Logan and Top Gun Maverick for the first time in my life. Okay. I'm starting to catch up on things. I just saw Logan. I was on a Mangold high. So I watched Logan.
That's his best film. So yeah, I love Logan.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's really good. Now, I'm a big Mangold fan now. After coming off the high of Dial of Destiny, I was like, I gotta see where he got his start, but what he's most famous for. I'm like, yeah, okay. I see everyone has been talking about all these time. That's good. Tom Cruise. He's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He's a damn good actor, and Top Gun Maverick was good. So okay, so that's all well and good. So yeah, the Acolyte coming sometime.
Hopefully next year, but maybe in 2025.
We will see it one day in the future. Rest assured. Okay, something else we will see in the near future. So Genevieve O'Reilly, this is actually left over from last week, but we'll talk about it right now really quick. Genevieve O'Reilly, this is prior to the actors going on strike, so, and obviously probably even before that. So probably been on a while. This was from Discussing Film. She talked about the fact that she's not only playing Mon Mothma in Andor, she's also playing her in Ahsoka, and that dual roles, and seeing, how the whole thing about the fact that, Mandalorian, the Mandoverse, is very known for using the volume, and Andor has been kind of almost too proud at times for not using the volume. So there's been some interesting things, and she kind of reflected on the different filmmaking techniques and working with not only Tony Gilroy, but also Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And she had this to say. She says, quote, "It was fascinating that they asked me, and it was such a surprise. I was really thrilled that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were interested in me coming for a minute to play with them. They're such brilliant filmmakers. It was just thrilling for me to be able to go over and play with them for a bit. I'm a huge fan of Rosario Dawson. She's a brilliant and formidable woman and actor. I think they're doing with that piece is going to be really exciting. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a wonderful actor, and I get to work with her also, which was amazing." And then she goes on to talk about, how wonderful it is, and getting to use the volume and all this kind of stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, I'm just bringing this up to again express my elation that Mon Mothma is in Ahsoka. Like that was my massive highlight from the first trailer. Just like knowing that could be a possibility of just like, Mon Mothma's right there. You have Genevieve O'Reilly. Just do it. And they did it, and it's great. And she looks great. And I can't wait. Even if it's for one scene, I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's actually funny enough you mentioned that, because like I heard that interview, and I'm like, doesn't sound like he did it that much, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not.
Yeah, it does sound like she says the thing about I was really thrilled that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were interested in me coming over for a minute to play with them. That leads me to think that maybe it is just one scene, which again, I'm fine with, but it seems like maybe it's just a glorified cameo, just like that one scene in Hologram again, which is fine. But I don't know. I don't know how to interpret that.
I'll also be curious to kind of see if there are any real differences. I mean, obviously there could be differences in terms of the era of which Mon Mothma is in. She's Chancellor now, blah, blah, blah. But also, this is Dave Filoni written Mon Mothma and not Tony Gilroy written Mon Mothma. So different styles. I'll be curious to see if it shows, or if she's just in so much little that it's hard to really tell.
Well, I learned after Andor, because like everyone was complaining about, Andor is better than Mandalorian, which I'm not going to necessarily argue with that point, but people were like doing it to the extreme of just like Mandalorian sucks this and Andor is great that, and I'm just like, I'm not on board with any of that. I love both shows, and if like my dream Star Wars show is one that's like done is a collaboration between Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Tony Gilroy. Like that's my dream Star Wars show. Like that would be perfect for me. Okay, that would be right. I probably wouldn't agree with a lot of people, but I would love it.
That will either go brilliantly or horribly, because I can see them either perfectly working together or their styles just clash, and it's like the biggest mishmash.
They may kill each other, I think, and that may be something that may be a good movie later after things, just the making of that show, that mythical show. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to hear. Like we've been accustomed to hearing, Genevieve O'Reilly recite George Lucas's lines and Tony Gilroy's lines, and now hearing Dave Filoni write lines for her is going to be a bit of an interesting thing. I'm not saying this is not a diss on Dave Filoni. I like Dave Filoni a lot. I like Dave Filoni's writing. I've been a Dave Filoni fan and a fan of Dave Filoni's work from way back to Clone Wars. Okay, I love Dave Filoni, so don't get me wrong here, but it's going to be different. So I'm intrigued. But Jesse, you have any thoughts on this?
Not really on this one. I'm interested to see what they do with her in the story. I feel like hopefully there's enough trust with her to kind of guide her character through those scenes, so we don't notice too much different in who the writer is. So it'll be, well, here's the point we want to make. How do you think she would do it? Hopefully there's that level of trust, because once you play someone for however many years it's been now, no matter how small the role, eventually there should be that level of trust. Like, well, here you go.
I'll say I think Genevieve O'Reilly is a good enough actress where we won't notice too much. Like, I do think, like in Mandalorian, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, this is Jon Favreau's view of politics. It's like, yep, Empire, same as the old, very kind of, there's a certain cheese to it, like very spells it out, where I feel like Gilroy would go a lot subtler with kind of what the message is, where I feel like Favreau's like, this is the message. The Republic and Empire are not that different. And it's just different types of writing style. I don't think one is inherently worse than the other. But I feel like overall Mon Mothma through the ages has pretty much been the same. She doesn't do much, so it's sort of like anything Andor is sort of like, oh, she's now a character with, a daughter and a husband that she didn't like, and a daughter who's kind of a brat.
Yeah, Andor was all about putting her in situations we'd never seen her before. Like, we see her not just Genevieve O'Reilly, but Carolyn Blankenson, seeing that character in this position of power, whether it's in the Senate or in Return of the Jedi, leading the rebellion. That was like taking her out of element and going like, okay, who is this person as a mom, as a wife? Like, how is she
as a woman?
Yeah, as dealing with, and that's why Andor's so great. I can say that now that Hannah's not here. I can say that Andor's great. Ha ha ha. But no. Like, so that's the whole thing with Andor. It's just like it opened up a lot of doors that we'd never seen before. So look, I'm looking forward to Andor season 2. Hopefully they don't screw it up mid-strike. I'm looking forward to Ahsoka. I'm really excited about Ahsoka. Speaking of Ahsoka, and speaking of the thing we mentioned off the top, San Diego Comic-Con is happening right now. We got a lot of Ahsoka reveals at Comic-Con. So this was really interesting. So we got some really cool, and these are actually photos from our good friend Dominic Jones. He was on the floor and he got these brilliant shots. He's actually been going viral today of some great shots of for those of you listening, this is a picture of Ahsoka's robes. I don't know if these are the same ones from Mandalorian, or maybe they're different, but definitely some of the stuff she wears in the trailers for Ahsoka. So she's probably going to be in these. But we got Ahsoka. We got Chopper. Chopper's back. And our favorite little war criminal has returned.
Chopper is a kitty cat. I will not hear any argument. He is a kitty cat droid.
I will say, I love the attention to detail. Just like, I don't know how much of the tire scuff is planned and how much was them getting it there at the convention center and stuff like that. But then there's all like the paint scuff marks and stuff like that. Where, I mean, obviously they're not just going to make a shiny new droid, but you can see the attention that they went through to make sure that he looks aged a little bit, but still functionable.
I'm still kind of in awe of just all of this, but specifically Chopper. I'm just like watching Rebels for so long. And yes, he was in Rogue One briefly. I've seen the trailers. He came out on stage. He's been on numerous episodes of Rebels Recon. Like, this is a character that's been in live action, but this right here is just like I'm familiar with this character. I've seen him, but not this way. It's just real weird seeing this real life version of him. I love the one. I hope this is the same one. I'm assuming it is. It's the one where his head wobbles back and forth, like in the show. And I can't wait to see what they do with him, because, like, as you're saying, the attention to detail is amazing. Like the scuff marks, all the stuff, the little innards and the little arm that you can tell probably comes out on his own and he can manipulate stuff. It's crazy. I can't believe that we're seeing this, and that Chopper is going to be going to steal the show for a lot of them. Like every scene he's going to be in, he's going to steal them, which I can't wait. Another thing that happened that caused quite a kerfuffle on Twitter today was the fact that this showed up. This is a lightsaber. You may recognize this lightsaber from Star Wars Rebels, and there's also, I think, a Galaxy's Edge version of it that's out there. But the thing on the plaque that says what this is at San Diego Comic-Con lists it as Sabine Wren's lightsaber. And people are like, what's going on here? That looks like Ezra's lightsaber. And you would be correct. It is Ezra's lightsaber. But it seems that Lucasfilm is kind of playing fast and loose with people here. I think they're trying to, maybe on one hand, maybe trying not to confuse people and saying, like, trying to keep Ezra vague and in the background and go like, oh, this is the lightsaber that Sabine's going to be using. This is her lightsaber. So it's a Skywalker lightsaber type scenario where, like, yes, it's Anakin's lightsaber and Luke's lightsaber, but Rey is using it now. It's her lightsaber. So I get where people are coming from, because a lot of people are like, well, where's Ezra? What's going on? And I'm like, chill, it's okay. You will notice that if you compare it to Ezra's lightsaber from the show and from the Galaxy's Edge version, the emitter is different. There's actually, like, you can't see it in the photo, but if you flip it around, it's got these kind of pronged emitter things, the kind of emitter guards in it. It looks a lot like Cal Kestis' lightsaber. So that's really interesting. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know if there's a story reason for that, or it's just Sabine just decided to change some things while it's hers. I don't know. Any thoughts on these?
Tinker. I mean, she likes to tinker, so maybe she's like, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna tinker with Ezra's lightsaber while I have it. Maybe it'll help me, to wield it, because we know she's gonna use it. She's gonna use it. The lightsaber, and since we're here, I want to pose a theory of mine to you guys that I've been thinking about for a while. So I've been thinking, about the Filoni film, and I'm thinking to myself, there's gonna be a lot of characters, but like, who is the main character? Who is the titular character? The Luke Skywalker, the Rey of this, of the cast. And at first I was like, maybe it's Ahsoka, because Filoni loves his Ahsoka. But I'm like thinking to myself, I feel like Ahsoka is too easy, and there's something feels off about that. But after thinking about this Ahsoka trailer, and kind of thinking where it's all heading, I think Sabine could be the main character of the Filoni film. I think she's going to be that will be her story. And she's going to be our Luke Skywalker character in this grouping. But that's just my vibe right now. I could be wrong after the Ahsoka series is all said and done.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I don't know. I've only seen the Ahsoka trailer like once, maybe twice, so I haven't processed it enough to remember it all the way through. But I'm thinking, by the time we get to the Filoni movie, who's to say Ezra's not our primary? Because right now the big question with the show is, where's Ezra? Where's, everything is leading back to that, just like calling the lightsaber Sabine's lightsaber instead of Ezra's, who say he hasn't built another one and he'll be involved in the finale and they'll fight side by side together or something. But that might leave us to, we didn't get to talk about what actually happened, and that could be the part of the movie also or something. I don't know.
No, I agree with both of you. I think my thought is that Ezra and Sabine will be kind of our point of view starring, for lack of a better term, characters in that movie. Because I feel like there has to be some focus on somebody. I feel like somebody has to be kind of things. And, I'm assuming Ezra will be found by the end of the show, and he will play up some type of role towards the end of Ahsoka, and then that'll set up whatever he's going to be doing in, I don't know, if we have more crossovers in season 4 Mandalorian or Skeleton Crew or something else, another season of Ahsoka. So I'm very curious about that. But, what is going to be the focus in the Mandoverse movie, the Dave Filoni movie, whatever we're calling this, Heir to the Empire? What is going to be? Obviously, we know, like, Thrawn is the easy tag for the villain, but who's going to be our heroes? You could easily... It could be Din Djarin. It could be. He's kind of at the center of this. This universe has kind of been named after him, Mandoverse. So,
but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. It's not named after him. They've been calling this, the official title of this era is called the New Republic era.
Right.
And in a weird way, Din has not been the center of a lot of things. He's kind of weird. If you really look at the story so far, 3 seasons, he's kind of off to the side. He hasn't
Din wasn't even the star of his own show in season 3. He was only the star of the show in another person's show in Book of Boba Fett. Okay, so this whole who's actually in charge here is getting real weird.
And it seems like Ahsoka is going to be going a full beeline to Thrawn. So while sort of like Din's kind of coming up the rear, like only now he's getting a little more involved in bigger stuff. So. I would have thought Din if Favreau were directing, but when Filoni was announced that director, writer chair, I'm like, okay, it's either going to be Ahsoka or someone else. And the reason why I'm hesitant to say Ezra is we had Ezra's story. That was Rebels. Rebels is Ezra's story. Ezra's story is kind of told. I mean, you can continue. So I feel like now it's Sabine's turn. Now it's her time in the sun to be the hero in the hero's journey.
I could see them in Dave Filoni's movie. I could see them pulling kind of an Avengers type thing where the principal cast of that movie is kind of a selection of characters, like one of each character from each show. So we'll be like, oh, let's take Grogu and let's take Sabine, and it's Jude Law and Fennec Shand, and they're off on an adventure, and they're gonna go kill Thrawn or whatever else. And that's the plot. Because, or maybe it is this giant thing where it's all the characters and they meet on a battlefield, and then they go Star Wars assemble, and they run at Thrawn. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know.
Thrawn with his Infinity Gauntlet. I am inevitable.
What you would get is you would get Din and Boba meeting. Hey, what are you here for? I'm here to kill Thrawn. I was here to kill Thrawn, and then boom, it turns into Mando versus Din, the Star Wars story. The equivalent to Batman versus Superman, but in Star Wars.
Put on the suit. Let's go a few rounds.
Oh gosh.
No taking off the helmet.
Din's final word is, "I am Mando."
Oh god. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Thrawn has found the 6 Kyber crystals. He's built the ultimate lightsaber.
Oh my god. Well, speaking of the blue man, we got this piece of concept art, which was on display at San Diego Comic-Con. And it's very interesting if you look closely, because it looks, a lot of people have pointed out this on Twitter, that it appears to be maybe that's Thrawn in some not Imperial robes, but some Chiss robes, maybe. And there's some golden Death Star droids on either side of him kind of flying the ship. And this is actually the same location that we see the magistrate, my love. The magistrate is in one of the trailers, or a couple of the trailers actually. But I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what this ship is. I thought maybe it was one of the dreadnoughts. Maybe it's a Chiss ship. I don't think it's the Chimera. Just doesn't really match what we've seen in the Chimera before. Or maybe it is. I don't know. But very interesting to see this and know what we've seen in the trailers.
So we have seen this in the trailer. We've seen the back of Thrawn's head. This looks exactly like the window he's looking out of. Except he's not looking at the stars. He's looking outside a planet. So we've seen Thrawn. It is Grand Admiral's uniform. I checked. It's the Grand Admiral uniform in the ship. Now, what the ship itself is beats me. I don't know. It could be Chiss. I honestly don't think it is. It could be a dreadnought. It could be what a Katana Fleet dreadnought, and they want to show what an ancient looking ship is. Maybe that's what Thrawn's MacGuffin was that he found in the unknown regions, for all we know. It does look old, and at least that's what I want it to be, because it looks fancy, but in an old way, where it's like we put effort into making these ships back then. This was artistry instead of just in factory setting Star Destroyer. This isn't the Chimera though. This is no way a Star Destroyer deck. So
there's also something just hit me. There's some people pointed out that if you look at the trailer, you can see behind Thrawn looks like there's a golden stormtrooper. I wonder if that's actually one of these droids, one of these golden droids instead, because because those Death Star droids, they have those big eyes, big black eyes, and could be that, or it could be a golden stormtrooper. I don't know, because there's some rumors about that too, some new stormtroopers. So we have the new troopers that Moff Gideon things. I don't think those guys are going to be back though. So I don't know. Any thoughts on this, Jesse? Theories?
I really don't know much about Thrawn. I haven't read his books or anything. Most of my knowledge comes from what we've gotten recently with the small stuff. And so I don't know much about any of what to expect, but I love the design of this ship. And that's really about all I have to go off of this picture. I can't wait to find out more about it.
Yeah, it's just really it's really cool production design. Like I appreciate that they're going on a limb here and doing something really, really cool. Speaking of ships, we've also got this, what I assume is the interior and exterior of a New Republic, like frigate. This is actually something, I can forget the name of it, but people pointed out on Twitter that this is actually an established ship from like Empire at War, Forces of Corruption expansion or something, or like some of the West End games. I'm not sure, but so we got this really cool looking vessel and the interior where Ahsoka's T6 shuttle is parked, and some A-wings, X-wings, whatever. So that's really cool. I think we actually see this from the front. We see the ship. We see her ship kind of flying into it. We kind of have a profile version of it. And her ship's flying into the side of it. So, so a lot of this stuff is definitely corresponds with the trailer. It's just a really cool looking ship, and it's cool to see it kind of in high quality, in full view, and just getting another type of ship. It's not just a Mon Cal cruiser or something like that. It's something different. Again, cool, interesting ship designs, and going on a limb here and with the stuff. It's really cool.
I would be remiss.
I was just going to say, and we get to see the size comparison right off the bat between the A-Wing there and the X-Wing. So, like, just right off the bat, we already know how big it is in comparison to other fighters, So that might speak a little bit to its capabilities and maneuverability. I don't fully know, though.
True. Very true.
I would be remiss not to mention, because I have friends who are freaking out about this, that we have the E-Wing in Ahsoka. The great E-Wing first appeared in Dark Empire 1991 by Tom Veitch. Legends lives with the E-Wing's return in Ahsoka.
Well, and speaking of the E-Wing, the E-Wing is now a Lego set too.
Yay!
The E-Wing went from Legends to live action to Lego in a very short period of time. This is one of the new Lego sets that they premiered a couple days ago, and then we got a really good look at them at San Diego Comic-Con. They're on display there at the Lego booth. And this is Shin Hati's Starfighter versus the New Republic E-Wing. And there's a little blue and gold droid, and there's a pilot. So I don't know what's going on here. Maybe because we see Shin Hati in a pilot seat wearing a little thing on her head. So like she's definitely like flying around in something. So we assume this is that ship. And then we have a New Republic E-Wing. So like this is not just a broken down old fighter. This is maybe a new fighter for the New Republic, something that they specifically create for the New Republic Navy. Who knows? But that's really cool. And then we also got
is Morgan Elsbeth. My character is Shin. I love Shin.
Yeah,
cool.
And then if you notice, I don't have the picture pulled up, but people have said that the Balin skull figure looks like George Lucas.
I was just this is the first time I've seen this picture, and I just looked at that Lego, and I was like, "Is that George Lucas?"
Dark side George Lucas.
I was like, "Okay."
It's George Lucas with a red lightsaber, pretty
much.
How
dare this is what you did to my franchise.
Oh my gosh. But and you can also see on our Instagram and all of our socials. There's pictures of all the costumes. There's Sabine's helmet. There's Balin and Shin's and Ahsoka's lightsabers are all there on displays. You can get a really good, like, detailed look at them. They look really cool. They're really good looking swords. Like again, production design is so good on this show. Speaking of the T6 shuttle, we've got the full T6 shuttle that comes with the Inquisitor. We don't know the Inquisitor's name. What's his name? Is Marek, I think they said, is the name of the Inquisitor now. That's his real name. So I don't know what's going on there. We got Ahsoka, Sabine, and it also comes with a Huyang minifigure. I love that someone on Twitter pointed out, Huyang has a gun? What? Like Huyang is carrying a blaster. I don't know what that says about Huyang. Maybe he just post-Order 66. He's just gone militant. He's not going to take any chances anymore. Because he's not a battle droid from what I remember. And then finally we've got the Ghost. Really, we got the Ghost with the Phantom in the back. We got I think this was revealed about a week ago. Maybe even talked about it last week. But yeah, aforementioned Chopper's there, and good minifigure. It just looks nice looking set. Like the Ghost really has always caught my fancy, and that it's just a great ship. And they've been conspicuously leaving it out of the trailers. They have not shown it in any of the trailers, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it in live action. I know we saw it in Rogue One and Rise of Skywalker, technically speaking. I want to see it fully, okay? I want to see it in the foreground.
Those were just cameos.
Yeah, those were just...
You have to like pause and zoom in at the right
way
moment
in the background.
To catch it in.
That was like, oh, did you see the Ghost? No, like nobody saw the Ghost the first time in Rogue One. The first time they watched it, it was always like the 10th time. So, yeah, really exciting stuff. And who knows what's going to be around the corner in regards to San Diego Comic-Con, because there is more stuff coming down the pipe. Tomorrow, as of recording this, or maybe as you're listening, Friday, July 21st, 2:30 to 3 o'clock, we have the Star Wars Hasbro panel. So that might feature some new looks at some figures that you might get to buy in 2-3 years, maybe. And then you will also get a new look at Star Wars Outlaws, the new video game, coming Saturday, July 22nd, 5:15 to 6:15. I'm sorry, I don't have the room numbers on these. So definitely check the local. If you are actually at San Diego Comic-Con and you want to go to these, definitely go check them out, because these all both sound like great panels. And it's Star Wars Outlaws Becoming the Galaxy's Most Wanted. And that's kind of all they have. They can't promote a movie or a TV show. They don't have the actors, but they can promote collecting and they can promote video games. So yay.
A Comic-Con about comics? What a novel idea.
Weird. I know, right? Yeah, I think this is the one, like, everyone is pulled out. Like the people that the guys from India, like Bollywood, like they rolled out their big movie. They have a big sci-fi movie coming out. They did the people that did RRR are now doing a sci-fi movie. And they're like, it's our time to shine because Hollywood shut down and Bollywood's here. And I'm like, this is hilarious. But Hollywood is getting shown up by Bollywood. Gotta love it.
I'm excited for some Bollywood. Are you excited for some Bollywood?
Give us a Bollywood. Give those guys a Star Wars movie. How awesome would that be? RRR mixed with Star Wars? Come on.
I would love to see a Bollywood take on Star Wars. I'm sure if I look hard enough, I'll find one. But
I mean,
there's Turkish Star Wars.
I want to see it. Make it now. Let's see their take on A New Hope. They start where George Lucas started.
Because I feel like RRR set the standard. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard so many great things. I feel like that set the standard. Or like they're getting with the big guns now. They've come into their own. They're making some quality stuff, and everyone's like on board with like the heightened reality. Let's just say heightened reality of some of those movies, which is just like, that's the point. It's all fake. So why does it have to be realistic? It should be fun and crazy, and that's what makes it fun. So yeah, that Lucasfilm, call those guys, because you certainly ain't going to get any American people to do anything right now. All right. Well, I think that is about going to do it for the news tonight. I was hoping for a special appearance by a certain someone to tell us all about San Diego Comic-Con, but have not heard from them yet. We're going to give them a few extra minutes, though. We're going to give them a few extra minutes. Maybe they'll show up at the tail end to give us the rundown. But in the meantime, if you would like, we're going to jump into Ask SWU, and we're going to go through some of the questions. For some reason, there's these couple guys that always come, and they're always here to give us some really good super chats. And for some reason, they just didn't show up tonight. I haven't seen a single comment from these guys in the comments section. They haven't had one super chat. These lazy guys, can't believe it. Jeez, I don't know where they could be. But so we did get a couple of comments. Thankfully, Discord bailed us out this week. We got a couple of comments from Discord, and we'll go first to Blackthorn, who says, how close to Zahn's Heir to the Empire will the Ahsoka series be? So we've talked a heck of a lot, obviously, about, will it be, will this be based on Heir to the Empire? How is this going to be? And, I don't know how, Jesse, I'll do this to you first. What do you ultimately think? How close do you think this will be? Or will it be, kind of just taking a few things and kind of running with the rest?
First off, I have nothing to compare. I will have nothing to compare it against unless I read the books by then and stuff like that. So right now, I couldn't tell you heads or tails, how close, how far. All I can think of is the MCU right now, because they also adapted previous works of art into film, but they changed things. And there's no verification that this is an adaptation or anything like that. There's just rumors that it's called Heir to the Empire. So there's really not much else to go off of besides that. So I don't think it's going to be anything like that. Maybe one or two small plot lines taken from the books that they find a way to work in and make it work out. But that's going to be about it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be small connections. I don't see there being like gigantic, like sweeping things. I think what you're seeing in the trailers in regards to like, hey, I kind of see that as a connection, and also Ahsoka literally saying the words "heir to the Empire," and having Thrawn in this, like that's the kind of the amount of connections. They're kind of on the nose and they're kind of subtle too, but nothing super like intense. But Joe, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the MCU, it'll be like the basic premise, but everything else is different. Like Civil War, the movie is like basic premise of here's Cap and Tony and they fight, and everything else is different. I think that's, as the basic premise of Thrawn's back and he's gonna do bad stuff. And then everything else is different. Like maybe Balin will be somewhat like Jorus Sabaoth, a former Order 66 survivor. He's got the right age for it. I'm afraid to diverge a little bit, but I thought about this when I was listening to somebody else's podcast today. Do you guys think Balin will die by the end of the season? Like he'll, and, I know it's gonna sound weird because like Ray Stevenson passed away, so it's like, oh, why? It's like, is that in poor taste? Well, they can't control what happens to the actors after they filmed it. He could have been just a one and done villain, and then they move on with other characters.
I mean, it's the same thing that happened. To look at what happened with Carrie Fisher. Like we lose Carrie Fisher, and then a big chunk of Last Jedi is her kind of on her deathbed and coming back from that, and that would have. If people had known wouldn't have known any better, that would be almost considered insensitive to the situation. But we knew it was all done prior to her death, obviously. So, we kind of took it and ran with it. And some people were like, well, maybe they should have just killed her off. I'm like, no, that's not. I'm glad they did what they did. And hopefully they'll just keep whatever they have. But it is interesting that, like, I could see if anyone's going to die in this show, I feel like Balin could be one to kind of think. And maybe Shin is the one that kind of sticks around, is in kind of out in the ether, and could be someone who could come back maybe.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Oh, go ahead, Jesse.
I'm thinking most likely. I'm thinking maybe critically injured from a fight and was given the option to change ways. I know, at least me, I'm tired of seeing the bad guy turned good storyline play out as often as it has these past few years. But maybe something like that, he goes somewhere else and just kind of lives, but he's exited the series.
I mean, that's possible. I could see it going either. I do feel like Balin is more the bad guy, the antagonist of this season, or of this limited series, probably this season. Like, I don't think this is like a Gideon, where it's like Gideon is the bad guy for 3 seasons of Mando. I guess I could see this, like, Balin is like the antagonist Ahsoka has to deal with, and then she deals with him, and then Thrawn's kind of left there with like, now I'm the Thanos, ready to do my thing for the movie. So,
because I think,
go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna make a little joke and say, or the armor.
Still holding on to that one. I mean, who knows? I think that like Balin and Shin are obviously being positioned not just by the storytellers, but I think by Thrawn himself to be kind of the guard dogs, and to be kind of that thorn in the side of Ahsoka and the heroes, to be like, because obviously Ahsoka is looking for Thrawn. She's not going to find Thrawn, or at the very least, it's not going to end with her throwing a lightsaber through his chest. Like, that's not going to happen in this show. I'm sorry. There has to be that I think the role that Balin and Shin are playing in the show is that they are the kind of primary antagonists, and Thrawn's in the background doing his thing, doing his yes, I like art and stuff. Like he's doing his thing. So I think a likely scenario is just like you get to the end and maybe they are redeemed. We know they are former Jedi. We hear in the trailer Baylan talking about Anakin, name dropping Anakin, saying he knew him. What does that say? What does that tell Ahsoka? What does that tell us about these characters? That are they long gone? Star Wars is a history of presenting characters with the redemption arcs, and we're supposed to believe that no one is too far gone. But at the same time, I'm kind of in agreement with you, Jesse, that some characters can just be bad, and can just the way to stop them is to kill them.
Yeah,
and that's
quit doing redemptions.
I don't think we're going to get a redemption with Thrawn. Thrawn is not. I think Thrawn is the bad guy. He needs to stay the bad guy. He needs to stay the course. And whatever happens to him is not going to be, Thrawn decided not to be a bad guy anymore.
I have a prediction on which character is the likeliest to get redeemed. And I'm sorry, Ben, it's not Morgan Elsbeth.
No.
I think Shin's got the best opportunity. She's young.
I agree.
And she's got kind of that Padawan probably probably fallen into the rough crowd. I don't know. And to kind of go back to the original question of how much are they taking, maybe, I think Filoni is inspired by these books. I don't think he'd just be putting in Thrawn because, random. I do think he is I think Filoni himself has talked about he is inspired by the original Heir of the Empire books. And I do think he is of the generation that sees that series as sort of the sequels that never were. I think Shin could be kind of our Mara Jade parallel. The kind of the Darksider character who by the end helped join forces with the good guys to stop Thrawn in the final showdown.
I will say this. If Shin survives this and goes on to have maybe a more redemptive arc, I hope it is an arc and not just a flip of the switch. She's on the good team now. I would like her to go right off into the sunset and end the show. Maybe Baylan's there, maybe Baylan's not, and then have her come back in a few seasons and go she's been off doing her own thing and she's still not quite with the good guys, but she's not on the bad team either. And do something like that. Play the long game with that character, because I think that'll be ultimately. Yeah. I think again, Star Wars has this thing of just characters are good, bad until they're good, and then they flip a switch and they're a good guy again, and they're on the good ties team. It's that really wouldn't happen. Someone that is indoctrinated into a thing, we assuming that Shin is, she would just flip a switch. It would be
it's as simple as you're not evil anymore.
Hey, they forgave Agent Callus pretty quickly, even though he was pretty happy that he.
But again, Callus was a gradual one. He wasn't at the flip of a switch. It was this. He had the encounter with Zeb, and then it took a season or two to come around to now I'm going to join the good guys. But of the bad guys that we're being introduced to, I see Thrawn and maybe Morgan Elsbeth living to the movie, but still bad. I feel like she's kind of being set up as Thrawn's assistant character, his second in command. Baylan, I can see dying. I know people are going to be never insensitive. I don't think they don't plan for the actor to pass. They gotta just let the story be the story. And Shin is the one I can see likeliest to both live and redeem, but especially just live, because I feel like she just gives off that vibe, of which character do you think will have the future, and there's even a little bit of that Ventress in her. I don't know why. Maybe it's the gothy look that she's got, but I feel like Shin's got a little bit of that Ventress, and Ventress, look at her arc through Clone Wars before she died, unfortunately. I feel like they could be, this is a redo of Ventress, and hey, let's have a character who kind of leaves the bad guys and kind of goes off and gets her thing and can be set up for cool stories in the future. Ventress is another great example of someone who has a long and storied redemption arc that is not just a turnaround, it's a gradual thing. I think that's great. And man, if Balin does die in this and there's a really dramatic death scene, that's gonna kill me emotionally, because I'm already kind of still in disbelief that we lost him and then lost the actor, and then that's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough.
But also, one more thing to go back to the original question. I feel like I keep diverting the original question. I think we could see Thrawn with maybe a ship with like an ancient fleet that he found in the unknown regions. I could see that, building up the military for reconquest. I'm a little unsure if I want that, only because I feel like we did the Star Destroyer thing in Episode 9. It's sort of like, there's a secret fleet no one knew about with Palpatine.
What if tinfoil hat fully on? I don't have one. I'm just think of me as wearing a tinfoil hat. What if the whole bit on Plaisir 5 with Jack Black and Lizzo was prophetic, and Thrawn, not like in the books where he goes off and he's trying to get a clone army and an ancient fleet, he goes off and finds an old separatist fleet and a bunch of battle droids, and that's going to be his army, and his whole thing is reactivating an old droid army to fight for him instead of stormtroopers. Any thoughts on that?
It seems like, I feel like, kind of like you said with the Jack Black episode, we kind of already went that route, except it was one person slowly messing, if I remember properly, one person occasionally turning the switch on a droid or something like that. I don't remember. But
right.
And then that I feel like that'd be a lot of retreading old territory, take us back to Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and all of Clone Wars. I would love to see the droids come back on the big screen. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's in the hands of Thrawn for them to come back.
I think whatever Thrawn is doing is going to be unexpected, and it's not. And to go back to Blackthorn's original question, I don't think it will be as simple as, he goes to Mount Tantus and he's trying to build a clone army, and it's just basically taken from the books. I don't think it's going to be that simple. It may be something similar, but it won't be something that on the nose.
I just get the sense that if there is a fleet, it's something a lot ancient than just the Separatists. Only because that bridge did not look Separatist, and also I kind of like the idea of them playing into. We talked about this in my Eye on Canon podcast, which you should go listen to. Thrawn's kind of an evil anthropologist. Thrawn's a bad evil anthropologist, and there's that part. And ever since Indy 5, I'm like, there's a part of me that really wants to make Thrawn more like an Indiana Jones villain, where it's like he's looking for the thing, and then it blows up in his face.
Man, I never really thought about that. That could be you could definitely. I've been watching a lot of Indiana Jones lately here, so bear with me. I could definitely see kind of a Donovan Belloc kind of scenario with Thrawn, of just like chasing after this thing. Maybe he's going after some kind of. You keep talking about the device, the MacGuffin with the world between worlds, stuff like that. Something like those lines. Thrawn, that being Thrawn's undoing. That would be really cool.
So he's in the world between worlds. Go back in time and kill the Emperor. So it's like planetary drift. Yeah, and then Thrawn ship flies out.
Intergalactic continental drift.
And then he's in the ancient war zone that he's never been in before, and he's freaking out.
I don't know where we're going, but it sure as hell ain't 19 ABY.
Nope, he's now 25,512. Back in the era of the first Jedi.
It ends up meeting Darth Bane or something.
Realizing that the ship that he recovered is actually the ship that he crashed whenever he got there, so it was always a closed loop.
We are spoiling the hell out of something that I won't mention, because if you don't get these references, then it won't be spoiled for you. So there. We're gonna move on to the next question. It's also no, you're fine. I love that. That was the best. We also have another question from Blackthorn, who says, whole new topic. Any thoughts on the first Jedi. We were just talking about this. How does 26,000 years ago affect the Skywalker time period? So I guess it's less of a question, more just a topic in regards to, and I guess we've kind of been talking about this in regards to like, and I'm not sure we'll see any really right on effects of like this happened in 25,000 years ago, 26,000 years ago, where it is, and it directly relates to what's going on in things. They did say that that Mangold's movie and so the Rey Skywalker movie will kind of thematically be linked, which I think makes sense. And obviously, you're talking about the dawn of the Jedi, the creation of the Jedi Order versus the rebuilding of the Jedi Order in the far future. There's obviously some connections there, but like what that will actually mean for the Skywalker saga and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think my only thought on this is, and you guys feel free to jump in anytime, but like, I think maybe seeing the hubris of the Jedi and like, obviously where they go in the prequels and where they end up as like being this thing that's mired in politics, and like where does that start? Is that part of the Jedi Order even from its inception, or is that something that comes way on down the line? Because the High Republic seems to be pretty well off, but they've got their issues.
It would be cool. So mind if I do a little Legends history for you guys?
Go ahead.
So once upon a time, and I kind of hope they had this synergy, but I don't think so. You had the Jedi Academy series come out, and you had the Tale of the Jedi comic books out more or less around the same time, maybe a little bit different eras. And the Jedi Academy series, essentially what the New Jedi Order series seems to be building on, where it's Luke. He's starting his Jedi Order at last. He's getting some students, asking people for help, and he's setting up his temple on Yavin. And whoops! Apparently, that temple has the spirit of an ancient Sith Lord named Exar Kun. He's not happy. And the cool thing is, the Tales of the Jedi comic, which are set 5,000 years before A New Hope, shows the fall of Exar Kun and his Sith War. So, I would like it if there was like some synergy where it's like, hey, here's them dealing with the ghost of a Sith spirit, and then the bad guy of the Dawn of the Jedi film is that actual dude when he was flesh and blood, and he became the first Darksider. I don't think that's going to happen. That'd be cool, but I do think there's also I think we could see the sacred Jedi text back when they were just text, and it's like the first Jedi's like, lifted rocks today, accidentally hit my head. Don't do that next time, future people reading this. And then Rey's like looking at the ancient Jedi text like, what? Oh my, very interesting. Do not hit head. Words of wisdom right here. So we can kind of see stuff like that. Obviously, it affects the Skywalker time period because this is obviously the birth of everything Star Wars, from Jedi and lightsabers and Force technique. So there's how it connects right there. But yeah, it is going to be interesting. You got one story about the guy or gal or non-binary person starting the religion and the technique and the Force powers, discovering the Force. And here's Rey kind of trying to rebuild the next iteration of this ancient religion that's been the source of our franchise forever. I kind of feel like there's got to be something, whether or not it's as direct as the villains are the same, except one's a ghost and the other is when he was flesh and blood. I don't know about that, but I got to think there's something.
Yeah, for sure. I'm wondering, the Jedi texts. I'm wondering if it's just like we see like this guy, girl, whatever that's being the first Jedi, and they're just like taking notes in this thing, and then we realize, oh, that's the Jedi texts that Rey ends up with. Like that would be interesting, and how that relates to each other. But I don't know. I think Mangold's been open. We talked about it before, how he doesn't want to connect things. He just kind of wants to do his own story, and he wants to do something that's completely separate from everything that's come before. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of connections either, especially just on the nose connections. They'll be more tangential.
You could take that in two different ways, though. The way he's saying he doesn't want connections, it could be, well, I don't want a Palpatine, I don't want a Skywalker, I don't want a Kenobi. I want to get away from these names that we know and love. Because if we go back 26,000 years, I don't want to hear about some ancient Kenobi person that is just a Kenobi for the sense of connection. But then thematically, yeah, we're going to have a lot of the same connections. Maybe not direct storyline connections, but at least that's how I'm looking at it.
So what you're saying, Jesse, is that the prime first Jedi was not the great ancestor of Palpatine.
I'm not saying it's not, but that doesn't need to be the story of it.
I'm kidding.
The closest connection we're gonna give us Dagobah 26,000 years ago or something. So something small. Take us to not Tatooine. Take us to. Or maybe show us.
I want to see 26.
Yeah, take us back. Show us a 26,000 de-aged Tatooine. Is it still a desert planet, or is it luscious in life at this point? We could see stuff like that. Differences in the environment because of where they're at in the galaxy. Physically.
Or it could be. I would love that because there's some lore. I can't remember if it was. I genuinely can't remember if it was in like a book or a comic or a movie, or if it was in Mandalorian, or if it was in Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I can't remember, but there's that stuff that talks about how Tatooine was once an ocean planet. I guess.
I think that was Book of Boba Fett.
I heard the same thing. I don't remember where. I'm gonna have to go back.
So there's that kind of history there. Like I want to see. Yeah, no, it's the dude from Office Space who's going for Boba Fett. He's like, oh yeah, there used to be oceans on Tatooine, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, he's talking about it. So like there's that canonical history, or at least that kind of legendary history. I'd love to be like, let's go to Tatooine, and it's like this lush ocean world or whatever else. Or maybe like Octo is like not an ocean world. Maybe it's like has a lot of land masses to it, but then we find out, oh yeah, by the time of Luke's time, all the polar ice caps have melted and it's mostly water.
I got it.
Camino could be Hoth, essentially.
Yeah.
Just all these. Go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
I got an idea. They go to a desert planet and they go to this rickety western old town. And at the end, the owner of the town going, I got a name for this rickety old town. Coruscant. Yep, where that's going to be made a small, teeny tiny town.
All it's got is a gas station and a Walmart. Sorry, a space Walmart.
Welcome to Coruscant.
Or if Coruscant were a southern town, it would be a Dollar General and a Waffle House.
Yeah, there we go.
That's the birthplace of the capital of the galaxy.
Hey, I love this. I love this. This is great. This is
final words. You think anyone's ever going to find out about this place?
Man, it sure is nice and peace and quiet around here. We just need to keep this to ourselves, not tell anybody about this.
I love the natural light.
I love actually touching the ground. Look at that giant mountain over there. It's nice. Look at the.
But so they could show us so much from the differences, because 26,000 years. I don't know if you know this or not, but that's a long time.
Slightly good amount of time there.
Just with the planets alone, there's a lot they could show us. Let alone the the advancements in technology that we're going to see, if any.
Advancements, because I'm a bit of an ancient aliens guy when it comes to Star Wars past. I am on the train of the ancient past of Star Wars was actually more technological, and that ships were like uber powerful, and they were flying like pyramids, and that the Death Star was nothing compared to the weapons they had back in the day. Like it was the age of antiquity, but for Star Wars.
Well, and like there's these examples, and we're speaking of ancient aliens. Like there is this discourse around the pyramids, which are again so freaking old. Like they were old. The people that lived 2,000 years ago, they were old to them. Like the pyramids have been there forever. We don't know how they built those things. They're so old. So the fact is that like people come up with these theories about like, oh, maybe it was aliens, and maybe it was, I don't know what, people there's tons and tons of those things, and I think some of it starts to discredit. I think the people that like people lived back in the day. They may have lived thousands of years ago. That they weren't stupid. They knew what they were doing, and I think, and ultimately, kind of where you land on that when you study that stuff is just like there's technology that they use to build the pyramids that is lost. That's they developed stuff. The ancient Egyptians created things that were just lost to time that we don't know about. And I would like the idea of like put that in Star Wars. Do something like that in Star Wars of just like, here's this technology of whatever, I don't know. You know, maybe there's something that we've never seen before and we never see it again because the people that are establishing the Jedi Order aren't going to be around in a few thousand years. They're things, and all we have left is this book of what they left us with.
It's interesting that in a lot of fantasy, you know, I'm thinking of Tolkien as kind of the other big world building thing. You know, the past, the ancient past of Middle Earth isn't sticks and stones. It's monumental cities. It is beautiful structures beyond which our imaginations cannot comprehend. When you get back to Lord of the Rings, it's like, oh, all that stuff just decaying and withering because we sort of lost the exactly, you know, like, but the ancient elves, the ancient men's, the ancient dwarves, like they were building things that.
You look at what was going on in South America, all the Mayans, what those cities and all the stuff that things, and all of it just vanished. And you're just like, what the hell happens? And, you know, they were doing amazing things and had amazing civilizations, and they're just gone. There's so much stuff that's happened in our relatively short amount of time of past that we don't know about.
But my point is kind of that is like, you know, people are expecting like, is hyper travel even a thing? And, you know, like, well, you know, are they going to be using sticks and stones instead of lightsabers? And to which I could say, if anything, they might be even more advanced. We might have them, like, you thought the prequels were all fancy and colorful. For all we know, ancient Star Wars might just be like, they're just, you can use your mind and then teleport your way to another planet or something. I mean, I don't know how ridiculous or over the top they'll get if we ever get this movie.
I'm wondering, not to keep putting on the tinfoil hat, you know, speculation here, and we do have to close this show up at some point tonight because we got to go to bed. But you know, I like the idea of like in the High Republic era, which is just a few hundred years before the Phantom Menace, they're talking about, oh, it's these outposts and exploration, and there's the frontier and all this kind of stuff, and they're kind of the galaxy is starting to be connected, and they're building this grand beacon so they can have communications and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, if that's just a few hundred years, imagine 25,000 years in the past. You know, is it just going to be people on a planet and they don't know those other planets out there? They don't know. They're sitting in Octo going like, oh, I can move a rock around with my mind, and we're the only planet in the galaxy because we don't have a spaceship to go to another planet. And then maybe, you know, maybe it plays out like Star Trek First Contact or something.
Maybe that's. I'm kind of curious how they handle tech and space travel in the ancient times because, you know, they don't want. I mean, maybe they'll be brave and they'll all be on one planet, but, you know, same time, it's like I think they'll want to do some planet hopping. Maybe we'll see the Purgles. Maybe they use Purgles. For all we know, they hook up Purgles to their ship and like, yeah.
Say, turn left at Tatooine.
Purgle chariots. There you go. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we have just about conquered everything and talked about everything that we could possibly do. Oh, there's one more thing. I forgot to show you. Oh, look at this. I put this picture in the thing. I'm going to show it. Okay. It's Chewbacca. This is one of the new Lego sets. And I want it so bad. Somebody stop me. Okay. My wallet is screaming. No, don't buy that. Well, it looks so good. For those who are listening, it's like a big Chewbacca figure that comes with some little tiny Chewbacca thing, but he's got the bowcaster and he looks so good.
No. So good.
Oh my god. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. As we talked about, we talked about it. We talked about everything. We talked about more than I planned on talking about. So I think with that, we are going to begin to wrap things up for this episode.
There we go.
So, please, as you heard off the top, go submit some, go send some money to the creative fund, the entertainment community fund. I keep putting creator in there when it's not. Entertainment community fund. That is, if you're seeing all the picket lines and you're saying, hey, how can I help out? Well, that's a good way to help out and do that. And again, standing in solidarity with WGA and SAG-AFTRA, and continue striking, guys. Everybody deserves fair pay, fair treatment. We're willing to wait, okay? We don't need any Star Wars right now. We're good. We got Ahsoka. We're happy. So that's all that really matters. As mentioned off the top, follow us at the SWU on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Hive. Maybe it's a few others I forgot. I don't know. Okay, it's a lot. Follow the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. A lot of great shows, and all of them for the low price of free. At least as far as I know, I don't think anybody on the network is charging for their shows. So you can all experience them from the comfort of your own home, absolutely free. And be sure to not just rate our show, but rate everyone's show. Go leave comments. People don't do that enough. As both a podcast listener and as someone who does podcasts, one thing that is really lacking in that department is people don't leave enough comments and say, hey, I enjoy your stuff. Tell the people that you love. Now we get the unique opportunity to tell writers and actors and shout out to them and say, hey, I really love your stuff. Well, do the same thing for your local podcast people. Tell them how much you love their stuff, because we love you. And I will say that possibly we will not be back next week. Can't say for certain, but I think we may be taking the week off next week for a multitude of reasons, mostly because I think all of us will be busy with a few random things, so we just may not be here. So, but in place of that, we are looking to come up with some kind of special San Diego Comic-Con themed episode. It probably will be audio. It may be video. I'm not quite sure. That'll be up to Dominic, but he's the one in control of that. He's at San Diego Comic-Con. Chris is at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll see what they cook up, and we're looking forward to that. So we'll have something for you guys next week. It may not be a regular show, but we'll definitely have something for you. And I think that's about it. Joel, tell the people where they can find Ion Cannon. What are the plugs? Tell them what you're doing. Whatever else you want to plug.
Yes, you can find Ion Cannon here on the SWU Network YouTube channel. You can also find us on Twitter, on Threads, on Instagram at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Again, that's EYECANONPOD pod, where I tweet stuff. You can also, of course, follow us on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, which I run, and we'll be having game night this week, Friday at 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern, playing some Fall Guys. So yeah, check us out, and thanks for inviting us, Ben. I had a lot of fun.
Well, full disclosure here, I asked both these guys to be here on very short notice, and they were extremely gracious and were able to make it happen, and saved me from doing a show completely by myself, which is a scary thought, if we're all being honest. Jesse, thank you so much for hosting, and please tell the people where they can find your podcast and anything else you're doing.
Yeah, so you can find Question, Possible Answer. Find our social medias on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for those, you'll find it. And then all your podcatchers, your standard ones, you can find it there. Next episode is actually going to have both of these guys on it. Just got to get that one scheduled and recorded.
We'll have a reunion.
This one's the test run, surprise. But
I mean, we could just record it right now. Let's just go. Let's just keep going. Jump Lagoon, yay!
I'm at 23 hours right now. I don't know if I can push out another one. I had a long drive this morning.
Oh,
but yeah, so you can find it there. About all I'm plugging right now. I've got a few other things, but not just yet.
All right. That sounds good. Well, as I said, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This was a genuine pleasure, a blast of an episode. I don't know. My only addendum with next week is like if for some reason they're like, oh hey, Rogue Squadron is happening and here's the trailer, we'll do an episode if that happens. Okay. Anything else, I think we'll have to take a break. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for and definitely check our feeds for on the socials to keep up with any updates we'll have, because they'll definitely be there. I'm gonna stop talking now. Okay, I'm rambling. It's been a long night. This has been a long episode. It's been a great episode though. Thank you so much for Jesse and Joel and Dominic and Chris and Hannah, wherever they are. Thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you guys in probably 2 weeks' time. But until then, may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.
Oh.